Vegapunk creates technology in the ninja world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. Machines rule the country. Most ninjas are not very interested in the so-called other extraordinary systems. At most, they regard those people as some special bloodline limits. There are so many strange things in the world of Naruto. Ninjas cannot even study the chakra system completely, let alone other systems. Yi Kang just looked at it curiously. So, this little girl's power is quite rare. Sarah was confused. She didn't know what Vegapunk meant by discovering a new extraordinary system, nor did she know how she had the rare power mentioned by the Wind Shadow, but except for controlling the dragon veins, I don't have any special power. It should be part of the power inherited from my ancestors. But it has begun to wilted. I guess there is no way to exercise it, and secondly, it has left the nourishment of the dragon veins, so there is no way to show it anymore. As Vegapunk said this, he observed it carefully and reached out to touch Sarah's hand a few times. Input a little chakra ls. Sarah struggled slightly and then blushed and didn't speak. It can probably only be regarded as the residue of some kind of extraordinary system. Vegapunk shook his head. If this queen practices the chakra system, she may develop some kind of blood limit, but this extraordinary system can only show its final echo in this way. There are not a few extraordinary systems swallowed by chakra. The simplest example is the seal, which comes from the practice system of Buddhist monks. If those monks do not have their own extraordinary system, they will definitely not be able to develop the method of mobilizing energy such as seal. As a result, the monks' practice now only has seals and some mental training methods such as meditation. The original system has basically been completely replaced by chakra. After hearing this, Yi Kang, who did not have much hope, completely lost interest. It was just an unknown blood limit. In today's Sand Village, which is changing with each passing day, it is really not a powerful thing. Vegapunk was quite interested. The dragon vein energy can travel through time and space. Although it is more likely to travel through parallel worlds, this is already an extremely powerful force. The Queen of Laolan can resonate with the dragon veins, so can her original training system completely control the dragon veins? Moreover, if Vegapunk wants to return to the pirate world, he must also study the power of time and space. Compared with traveling through different worlds, it is also a good method to start with the simpler study of traveling through parallel worlds. However, even for Vegapunk, it is impossible to restore a training system that has completely disappeared. He can only try to use the chakra system to restore it. Orochimaru has some information about the Flying Thunder God and the orthodox sealing technique from Konoha. If he modifies it and directly instills it into the queen's brain, maybe he can see what effect it has. Sarah shuddered and looked at Vegapunk's fanatical eyes looking at her. This time, she was not shy, but inexplicably a little scared. What? This guy? He actually took away so much of my dear's love as soon as he came. Hancock stood at the door of the laboratory with an ashing look, muttering something. I don't think that can be called pampering. Yi Kang opened his mouth, sweating, and said speechlessly. So it's you, the ugly girl. Aren't you the Wind Shadow? Why don't you go to work? Hancock turned his head and looked at Yi Kang beside him, raised his head slightly, and said with a haughty look. Yi Kang, who had long been immune to Hancock, couldn't even get angry now. The management robot made by Lord Vegapunk is much better than me in management ability. Of course, dear, but he is the smartest person in the world. Hancock said proudly, so only the most beautiful woman like me can match him. People like you and that Sarah can only be maids. Yi Kang rolled her eyes and ignored the Empress, who would become extremely emotional once it came to Vegapunk. She just leaned against the wall and thought for a while, and she felt that as the Wind Shadow, it seemed that she had almost nothing to do except serving Vegapunk. Alas, it seems that even the Kazakage is no longer necessary after the management robot has been established. Now I'm almost a professional maid for adults. The so-called management robot, although called a robot, actually has a vague self-awareness, but the development of its own data is restricted by Vegapunk, and its self-awareness is extremely weak. However, this kind of robot is actually very useful in management. Robots do not understand what human feelings are, and they are more rigid than clones in adhering to various systems. But it is precisely because of this that they can be called fair and honest, and iron-faced and impartial to the extreme. Without considering issues such as the intelligent machine crisis, robots with weak self-awareness can be regarded as a model of public servants, and those sand ninjas would not think of using relationships and human feelings to impress a piece of iron. Although it is worrying to let a piece of iron take on the management of the ninja village, the grassroots ninjas soon discovered the benefits of this kind of governance. It may be inhumane, but it is fair and just. It treats everyone equally, which makes the mobility between upper and lower classes smoother. Many low-level ninjas can feel that the village is better governed. Not to mention, although it is a piece of iron, it is still surrounded by a lot of ninjas. All of them are puppeteers of the Sand Ninja. After seeing the intelligent robot, these otaku ninjas who like to play figurines are basically like seeing God. Even Chihio, the veteran puppeteer, is thinking about how to study this intelligent robot every day, so that Vegapunk has to install weapon systems and combat programs on this robot, so that it will not be accidentally broken by a 70-year-old lady for a search one day. He doesn't think that these ninjas who can only make some puppets, and at most add some biotechnology, can put the disassembled intelligent robot back. At this moment, Sarah, who is being envied and hated by Hancock, has no ambiguous thoughts. She only feels overwhelmed by Vegapunk's current favor. No, I can't do it anymore. Sarah, sweating and panting, had just climbed out of the training cabin when her legs went limp and she fell to the ground. Her lab coat was already soaked, revealing her good figure. However, Sarah didn't care at all. I really can't do it anymore. I feel so weak all over, and my head is so dizzy. Chapter 77, The Lost Heritage. Well, your current chakra level is probably close to that of a Jonin. Vegapunk glanced at an operating screen in the training cabin and said, the chakra level is pretty good, but the adaptability of the space-time chakra energy is not that high yet. There is no such attribute as space-time in chakra. Sarah couldn't help but complain. Don't think that I don't have any knowledge, just because I'm not a ninja. I've only heard of the 5 attributes of chakra: water, fire, earth, wind, and thunder, but I've never heard of chakra with space-time attribute. The so-called space-time adaptability training in the training cabin not only made Sarah feel physically exhausted, but also made her feel dizzy. The weird chakra technique gave her the feeling of being 10 times dizzy, like the most severe seasickness patient. This was the reason why she couldn't bear it. To be precise, it should be chakras with 7 attributes: water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, yin and yang. After hearing what Sarah said, Vegapunk couldn't help but explain, but chakra does have certain space-time attributes. This is the attribute that is refined again after chakra has been transformed through various space-time techniques and returned to its original state. In theory, it is not pure space-time, but through this kind of chakra, it can indeed increase the ninja's adaptability to space-time ninjutsu. Okay, the space-time adaptability training is over. Now it's time to increase your perception ability. Vegapunk said as he took out a helmet. Sarah's face suddenly became very ugly. Can I take a break? I feel like my brain is about to explode. I really can't take it anymore. I've reached my limit. The limit you think is not your real limit. Only by training at this limit can you raise your ability limit to a higher level. Whether it's physical training or mental training, or the training we are doing now, training at the edge of the limit for 1 minute is much better than training for an hour normally. Okay, let's not talk so much. Let's start the perception training. As he spoke, Vegapunk stuck his helmet on Sarah's head, and Sarah immediately fell silent. This method of stimulating the brain, increasing mental power, and improving perception is not too professional. It can only be regarded as the most basic training method of all perception training. However, Vegapunk was also afraid that overly professional induction would cause Sarah's ability to deviate from the path. Originally specializing in the perception of dragon veins, if it were replaced with the popular chakra perception, it would be too much of a waste of talent. So this most basic intensive training could only be carried out before Sarah had the ability to control the dragon veins. Vegapunk didn't want to study the dragon veins at all. You know, the power of the dragon veins has not calmed down yet and is still sealed. If you want to study it, you must open the seal. Once the seal is opened, who knows which era you will be thrown into? He didn't perform any human body transformation on Sarah, for the same reason as Sarah's training with only basic training. If the human body transformation destroyed Sarah's blood and lost the ability to perceive the dragon veins, it would undoubtedly be a foolish thing to buy back the pearl. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Even without any human body transformation, with the various black technology training of a super scientist like Vegapunk, Sarah's own talent was thoroughly developed. As her talent was stimulated, Vegapunk also completely knew what kind of path Sarah should have taken. According to the settings in some fairy tales, Sarah should be a formation master or a feng shui sorcerer. Determine the dragon veins, gather feng shui, kill the enemy with formations, and practice with various formations. This is probably the path of Sarah's ancestors in ancient times. Even though Sarah has no knowledge now, she can still instinctively see the direction of the Earth's illusory veins. Through her own ability, she can even influence the terrain, gather feng shui, and turn the desert into an oasis. Of course, she can only do this through her own ability. She can influence the earth veins and water veins so that they converge and slowly evolve into mountains or lakes. This will probably take several years. If there is no Vegapunk, Sarah, who has awakened this ability, will definitely become a national treasure of the Kingdom of Wind, and her importance is many times greater than that of Yi Kang, the Wind Shadow. Unfortunately, now that Vegapunk is here, Sarah can only create a larger oasis at most at a time, and it will take several years. Vegapunk directly affects the weather of the entire Kingdom of Wind. A few years are enough for him to turn the Kingdom of Wind into a fertile land, and Sarah's ability is not so important. However, Sarah is quite satisfied with her ability. She thinks that with this ability, it would be easy for her to find a place for her people to live. It's amazing. It turns out that there is so much energy in the earth. The so-called dragon veins should also be formed by the energy of the earth. Sarah sat cross-legged on the earth quietly, sensing the huge energy circulating inside the planet, and a look of sudden realization appeared on her face. Perhaps the so-called Lowland dragon veins are formed by the ancestors using the energy of the earth veins. It's a pity that now we, the descendants, can only barely sense and control the energy of the dragon veins, which is really far behind our ancestors. Vegapunk also had a bit of regret on his face. Although he was a scientist, he was actually not opposed to supernatural powers. The essence of science is a dialectical thinking. Even after all kinds of supernatural powers have understood the laws, they can still be integrated into science. In Vegapunk's eyes, the profession of a Ray Master like Sarah is undoubtedly highly compatible with science. If he can get the inheritance, he may not be unable to develop some powerful scientific arrays or methods of cultivation with the help of planetary energy. No, it should be said that with his personality, it is natural for him to develop this ability. As a scientist, what Vegapunk wants to do most is of course scientific cultivation. Anyway, at least the initial goal has been achieved. Now your ability to control the dragon vein should be much stronger. Can you calm me down? Hearing Vegapunk's question, Sarah frowned slightly. I'm not sure. The power of the dragon vein is too huge. Now thinking back, I can't imagine how this power is condensed. Are the ancestors really that powerful? Vegapunk has no answer to this question. The cultivation system 1000 years ago may be far inferior to the chakra system in terms of universality and the number of practitioners, but the height that can be achieved in the end is really not as good as the current chakra system. The only thing Vegapunk dares to be sure of is that no matter how strong the cultivation system 1000 years ago is, it is not as strong as Kaguya Otsutsuki and Daishiki Otsutsuki, otherwise these local strongmen would not have perished. Chapter 78, Unsealing. This is the dragon vein. Standing on the land of Lowland, Vegapunk looked at the newly developed energy meter in his hand with a surprised look on his face. The value on it made Vegapunk a little suspicious. There was no other reason. The energy value of the dragon vein was almost comparable to that of the weather tower. And if the energy of the weather station is taken as an example, Shukaku, it is almost 10 times that of Shukaku. This energy value, I'm afraid that except for the nine-tailed beast, which is not very clear, it should be the most powerful energy in the entire ninja world at this stage. Although it is called Dragon Vein Chakra, it has been said before that any energy in the ninja world will be called chakra. The so-called Dragon Vein energy actually has nothing to do with chakra, but has a certain similarity with natural energy. Sarah, who was following behind Vegapunk, also had a pale face. There was no way. The so-called ignorance is fearless. She is different now. Before she fully awakened her blood power, Sarah could only feel that the Dragon Vein was very powerful, but now that Sarah has awakened her blood power, she truly understands how vast the Dragon Vein energy is. That kind of energy, with just a little disturbance, is enough to turn the entire Lowland into ruins. If it really riots, it is estimated that it will be enough to blow up 1/10 of the Wind Kingdom. When Sarah thought that her country had been built on this kind of bomb, she felt terrified. When she thought about Vegapunk's desire to use this energy, she wanted to persuade him that Dr. Vegapunk. Sarah just said that sentence and saw that the expression on Vegapunk's face became fanatical and excited, muttering some professional terms in his mouth, as if he was possessed. Don't you think this energy is too dangerous? This half of the sentence was swallowed back by Sarah's stomach. Vegapunk usually doesn't have any airs, but he also has the crazy and cold side of a genius scientist. Sarah knows very well that once Vegapunk is interested in something, no one can pull him back. Of course, Vegapunk also knows that the Dragon Vein energy is very dangerous, otherwise, he would not have gone to great lengths to cultivate Sarah. But now Sarah's talent potential has been fully developed. No matter how much she trains in the future, Sarah's ability to control the Dragon Veins will not change. In this case, Vegapunk will either wait for a few years for his technology to make a breakthrough, or he can only take the risk to test it now. You know, Vegapunk still has a group of people under him in the pirate world. Although under his initial instructions, there should be no problems for at least a few years, but if he really stays here for more than 10 years, God knows what will happen to the pirates. Even Hancock has two sisters in Amazon Lily. Even if the Empress says every day that it would be fine as long as her dear is around, it is impossible to say that she doesn't miss her sister and her people at all. There is another important factor that Vegapunk did not tell Sarah. Just near the oasis of Lowland, a meteorological tower scanned the entire Wind Country's mineral deposits and found a certain radioactive area. The results of the analysis showed that it should be a uranium mine buried dozens of meters underground. Although this radioactive mineral is not a fuel for nuclear fusion, it must be involved in the initial high temperature fusion ignition, using the high temperature of nuclear fission to guide the occurrence of nuclear fusion. As long as a small portion of this mineral can be mined, Vegapunk's nuclear fusion reactor can be ignited, and the energy of the nuclear fusion reactor can be used to repeatedly ignite other nuclear fusion reactors in the future. Just like what some online scams say, the tens of millions of dollars in the bank are just a few hundred yuan away from unlocking. However, this radioactive substance seems to be a companion mineral of the Dragon Vein. Vegapunk doesn't know why it's so coincidental, or what the relationship is between the Dragon Vein and this mineral itself, but no matter what, he certainly can't give up this opportunity. As long as the Dragon Vein problem is solved, he can not only study this energy related to time and space, but also get the most important thing for scientific research development, almost unlimited energy. Coupled with the almost unlimited computing power of the quantum brain, the combination of the two, Vegapunk believes that he can definitely research a way to return to the pirate world in a short time. The last time he traveled through time, the quantum brain was also working, recording a large amount of data related to time travel. With this data, he can greatly reduce his research time, and most importantly, it can give him a research direction, which is also one of the reasons why Vegapunk is so impatient. Okay, Sarah, come with me, let's go to unlock the seal of the Dragon Vein. Vegapunk waved his hand and walked towards the seal. Sarah was slightly stunned. At this time, she suddenly felt someone patted her back lightly and turned back to see the tall Hancock. What are you still doing here? Follow my dear, you are a timid and useless experimental subject. Sarah shrank her head. She was not Li Kang. She couldn't help being angry, and even if Yi Kang was unwilling to quarrel or fight with Hancock, that was something he couldn't win. It's not just because of Hancock's strength, but also because Vegapunk's love and trust for Hancock far exceeds that of other people in the ninja world. At the same time, if there is any technological breakthrough, the first person to enjoy the benefits must be Hancock. In this case, Yi Kang will naturally not make himself unhappy. Gritting her teeth, Sarah had no choice but to follow. Now she had no right to refuse. Lowland was now a ruin, and the so-called sealed land was underground, and had long been buried. Fortunately, the three people present were not ordinary people. Even Sarah, whose chakra capacity was several times that of a Jonin, even if she did not know ninjutsu, was a little superman with her chakra enhanced physical fitness, so it was easy for her to clean up the ruins. With a crash, Vegapunk slashed with his sword, easily splitting the pile of rocks blocking in front of him, revealing an underground palace below. Is this the location of the seal? Looking at the large number of sealing arrays on the ground below, and the trident flying thunder god dagger inserted in the middle, Vegapunk asked. Sarah nodded, with a bit of nostalgia in her expression. After years of wandering around, she did not expect to be back here again. Let me see how to break this seal. Got it. By cutting off these notes, the seal will gradually lose its effectiveness. Vegapunk looked at it for a while, then started to remove the seal directly. Chapter 79 Parallel World, Infinite Moon Reading. As a purple beam of light shot up into the sky, the entire seal was completely broken, and terrifying energy fluctuations spread. In the purple energy, Sarah's face was solemn, sweat dripped from her forehead, and she tried desperately to control the power of the dragon vein under her feet. Vegapunk looked at the energy meter spinning in his hand, frowned slightly, but still spoke calmly. Don't try to control the dragon vein with all your strength. Let's calm down the area around us first, and wait until the dragon vein energy is exhausted, before talking about other things. Woo. I know. Sarah said reluctantly, shrinking her control range, and finally calmed down the dragon vein near her. But Vegapunk looked around. The purple beam of light still surrounded them, and the covering magnetic field ability of the observation haki extended out. Vegapunk could feel that the entire external magnetic field was in chaos, sometimes high and sometimes low, and the space outside was shattered like a kaleidoscope. This should be the ability of time and space transfer, right? Vegapunk lowered his head and muttered, took out a new instrument from his hand, and began to record. In fact, before coming here, Vegapunk had already made such preparations. The riot of the dragon vein can still throw people into the parallel world after more than 10 years, so this time, there is still a great possibility that Sarah cannot control the dragon vein. It doesn't matter if you can't control it, as long as you can ensure safety. Anyway, Vegapunk has confidence in himself, and doesn't think he will be trapped in the parallel world, and can't go back. Soon, the purple light column gradually weakened, revealing a light red sky and an astonishingly large 9 megatoma red moon in the sky. Vegapunk opened his mouth wide. Gan. Bat. Faintly, a weak but extremely high quality chakra invaded Vegapunk's brain, but in the next moment, a spark flashed on Vegapunk's forehead, and the original psychedelic feeling was greatly weakened. At the same time, the quantum chip in his brain began to operate rapidly, detected that the host's self-consciousness cannot operate autonomously. According to Article 15, deep consciousness awakening is carried out. Enter the autonomous operation protection stage. After a moment, Vegapunk covered his head, feeling dizzy again and again. When he looked up, he found that he was in front of him, as if he had entered a bizarre world. Infinite moon blasphemy. That's terrible. Fortunately, most of the power of illusion was blocked, so I didn't immerse myself in a dream. Quantum chip. Block all external signals from entering the brain. Scan with electromagnetic ability, and then decipher the electromagnetic information, and convert it into the 5 senses system. Received. Converted. With the mechanical sound from the quantum chip, Vegapunk's eyes turned black and bright, and the original psychedelic feeling completely disappeared. However, even if the brain was blocked from receiving signals, Vegapunk still felt the strange illusory power that permeated the entire world, and could even feel the strange electromagnetic waves constantly echoing. It's really unlucky. Vegapunk, who had recovered, looked around and saw an incredibly huge tree root, which was full of things like tree cocoons. At this moment, beside Vegapunk, a domineering spirit quickly unfolded. With a cry, the samurai mark in Hancock's eyes was instantly shattered. Damn it, how dare you control me? Who did it? Hancock has recovered. It seems that Conqueror's Haki is still quite useful. Seeing Hancock regain consciousness, Vegapunk's face showed a bit of relief. Although Infinite Tsukuyomi can be said to be the top illusion in the world of Naruto, if we really talk about strength, it is not necessarily much stronger than the ordinary Mangekyou illusion. It's just that the authority of Kaguya Otsutsuki's chakra is too high, so all ninjas who practice the chakra system are naturally unable to resist. But when it comes to Hancock with Conqueror's Haki and Vegapunk who maintains the electromagnetic barrier, the effect is greatly reduced. After all, their systems do not rely on chakra. Honey, are you okay? What's going on? Hancock looked around after waking up, looking at the cocoons of people hanging on the tree in the reddish moonlight, and asked in surprise. I'm not sure either. We should have been thrown into a parallel world by the dragon vein of Laulan. This doesn't seem to be Laulan. Judging from the stars in the sky, we are probably not in the kingdom of wind anymore. Vegapunk said a few words, and suddenly saw a small branch extending from the huge trunk. Of course, it was only small compared to the huge trunk. The branch was at least as thick as a bowl, and it stretched out to Sarah standing next to Vegapunk and the others like a giant python, and instantly rolled her up. Vegapunk was stunned for a moment, but Hancock reacted immediately, and kicked it directly, kicking the branch into a pile of rotten stones. However, the branches were endless, and soon dozens of branches came in the same way. Hancock was still not afraid, and stretched out her hand, to pull out a red heart, captive arrow. A large number of pink arrows gushed out, directly turning the branches and even the trunk into stone, including the human cocoons under the trunk. Hancock's attack seemed to alarm the tree. As the entire trunk surged, with a crackling sound, the stones suddenly cracked and shattered, including the human body and the cocoon, which was also turned into fragments. However, neither Vegapunk nor Hancock cared about this. After taking a closer look at Sarah, Vegapunk shook his head and said, "Let's leave first. Sarah can't wake up now." Hancock frowned, "But dear, if we don't have this woman, how can we go back?" "It doesn't matter. I observed the people in the cocoons. Even if they are caught, they won't die for the time being. We'll find a way to save her when the time comes." Vegapunk said that it didn't matter if he left it alone. Not to mention that there would be two saviors to save the world in theory. The world's rejection of outsiders alone was enough to repel the three of them back after a period of time. At this time, there was a rumbling sound in the distance, and the ground was slightly shaking. In the far distance of his sight, he could still vaguely see a glimmer of explosion. Vegapunk frowned. With his observation haki that combined electromagnetic waves, if it was combined into a radar scanning mode, it would almost be enough to extend thousands of kilometers. But even so, he still couldn't sense the battlefield. The aftermath can be sensed from such a distance. It's really abnormal. Compared to the Naruto world, the basic combat power of the One Piece world is far superior, but the most advanced combat power is not as good as the Naruto world. It seems that we should not go to the battlefield to join in the fun. Chapter 80 Human Brain Synchronization. The attack target of the sacred tree seemed to be aimed at those who were hit by the infinite moon reading. After Vegapunk and Hancock stopped attacking the sacred tree soon ignored them and hung Sarah directly. Vegapunk didn't care about Sarah. After harvesting some branches of the sacred tree for materials, he wanted to wait for time to pass. However, soon, sensing the strange energy in the infinite moon reading that permeated between heaven and earth, the curiosity and various crazy ideas of a scientist rose again. Vegapunk, as a time traveler, is not exactly the same as a pure scientist in the original work. Compared with the Vegapunk in the original work who regarded the brain fruit as a devil fruit that increases intelligence, this time traveler did not develop it completely in this direction. In terms of telekinesis and mental power, the current Vegapunk is also a bit advanced, especially since he once conducted research on brainwave synchronization in order to increase computing power. That was the inspiration that Vegapunk got from a comic book in his previous life. He conducted an evil research on adjusting the brain waves of human brains and using other human brains as calculators to obtain a large amount of computing power. In fact, that kind of research has already made some progress, but later due to the breakthrough of quantum technology, Vegapunk's original brain was transformed into a super quantum computer. The computing power of one brain alone surpassed the sum of all human beings. The original plan was meaningless and was naturally abandoned. If you think about it carefully, if you don't pursue the computing power of the human brain, but pursue human knowledge and inspiration, there may be unexpected gains. Now almost all humans in this world are trapped in the infinite Tsukuyomi ninjutsu. Isn't this a good opportunity? If we can start with their spirits at this time, I'm afraid we can gain a lot of knowledge far beyond imagination. With a smile on his lips, Vegapunk did it without hesitation. With the blessing of the quantum chip, he began to use chakra to analyze the infinite Tsukuyomi illusion that permeated between heaven and earth. However, Vegapunk was not thinking about breaking this illusion, but using it to add some of his own private goods. Before that, he had to find a breakthrough interface. He chose Sarah as the breakthrough interface. The girl who had just entered the infinite moon reading illusion was celebrating with her citizens in the original Aulon. Suddenly, she felt a trance, and the scenery around her was shattered and turned into darkness. Then, the originally ignored memories in her brain came back to her mind. What's going on? What's wrong? By the way, I seem to have come through the dragon vein. Yes, you are awake, Sarah. Hearing the voice behind her, Sarah turned around in surprise in the darkness and saw the figure of Vegapunk. What's going on? Dr. Vegapunk? Sarah asked in a panic, but Vegapunk waved his hand. There is no time to explain. Follow me. As soon as Vegapunk finished speaking, Sarah felt dizzy in her brain, and her whole body turned into a colorful stream of light surrounding Vegapunk's head. Feeling that the illusion was completely shattered and his spiritual power increased a little, Vegapunk smiled and looked at the infinite bubbles in front of him. Those bubbles were large and small, some were brilliant and some were dim. They were the dreams of everyone in the world. The huge and brilliant ones were the dreams of some ninjas with strong chakras, while the small and dim ones were probably the dreams of ordinary civilians. Vegapunk did not startle those huge dreams at the beginning, but started with those weak dreams that were as tiny and dim as pearls and as numerous as the sands of the Ganges. After instantly shattering the dreams, he directly wrapped up the opponent's spiritual power and began to attack more dreams. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100. As more and more dreams were shattered, the spiritual power that Vegapunk carried became stronger and stronger. Originally, in this endless dream world, Vegapunk was like a small stone in the ocean. However, as the human beings wrapped in his spirit developed exponentially, a large amount of mental power was stirred like a huge wave, making the entire dream world turbulent, and even those huge dreams began to break. More and more dreams were broken. Mental power was used by Vegapunk. Knowledge was absorbed by his quantum chip. A large amount of knowledge poured into his mind. The quantum chip had begun to upgrade and even gave Vegapunk a feeling of overheating. In the end, everything in the dream world had completely collapsed, and only Vegapunk stood alone in the dark void. Countless colorful streams of light behind him turned into a dazzling halo like the sun, making him slightly distorted. Looking up at the sky, the 9 Magatama Samsarai was hanging high in the sky, which should be the source of this illusion. However, now the power of the infinite Tsukuyomi is obviously no longer able to affect this dream world. Perhaps the infinite Tsukuyomi ninjutsu can affect everyone who is scattered, but it is absolutely impossible to affect the terrible monster that condenses the spiritual power of hundreds of millions of people. Through the synchronization technology of brain and mental power, and using the infinite moon reading ninjutsu as a connection, Vegapunk did not expect that he could accomplish such a thing so easily. Although he is now in an illusory dream world, he has an extremely solid feeling, which is the reason why he is filled with a lot of mental power. What a pity. Only in the infinite moon blasphemy ninjutsu can I have this level of mental power. Vegapunk sighed. The infinite moon blasphemy ninjutsu will turn humans into biological weapons white zetsu as time goes by. At that time, their mental power will naturally be completely destroyed. Even if Vegapunk wants to rely on this ninjutsu to obtain a lot of mental power, he can't do it at all. Forget it. People can't be too greedy. At least this time, almost all the knowledge of the entire Naruto world has been recorded in the quantum chip, which is enough to promote my scientific research development for 5 to 10 years. What's more, there is a feast in the sky. I don't know what kind of knowledge the Otsutsuki clan has in their heads. The power of illusion itself can be called a competition of mental power, especially the illusion performed through the pupil technique, which is almost equivalent to completely giving up one's physical barrier and competing with pure mental power. This is why there are often rebound illusions in illusions, because when using illusions, it can also be said that the illusion defense is the weakest. Chapter 81 Quantum Chip Proxy Program. Vegapunk slightly raised his head and looked at the moon in the shape of the 9 Magatama Samsara in the spiritual world. The whole person turned into a stream of light and went upstream. In an instant, he was in a trance and entered a vast consciousness. Feeling the spiritual power of the other party, Vegapunk was shocked to find that even at the peak of his previous life when his brain had not been removed, his spiritual power was probably only about 10% or 20% of the other party. As expected, it is a super life form that has swallowed a large amount of energy from a planet and at least hundreds of thousands of lives. If I hadn't relied on the brainwave and mental power synchronization to condense the spirits of almost hundreds of millions of people, I'm afraid it would have been crushed in an instant. Vegapunk sighed a little in his heart, and then without hesitation, he relied on the powerful mental power obtained by brainwave synchronization to directly suppress the spirit of Kaguya Otsutsuki, and frantically explored and browsed the memories of the Otsutsuki clan. Even Kaguya Otsutsuki, in terms of real spiritual power, could not compare with the union of hundreds of millions of humans. She was suppressed almost instantly, and the memories belonging to the Otsutsuki clan were quickly summarized and absorbed by Vegapunk. Compared to humans who use chakra as energy to develop a large number of ninjutsu and push their combat power to the limit of the same level, the Otsutsuki clan's use of chakra is closer to instinct. Apart from their own bloodline ability, they have hardly developed any combat ability. But this is by no means to say that the Otsutsuki clan's technology is poor. The naturally powerful Otsutsuki clan, because there is no external threat, does not care much about using chakra to fight, but has developed many skills in how to improve their essence, or better plant trees. For example, the wedge that prevents the Otsutsuki clan from dying easily, when this skill was first developed, was actually specifically for feeding the sacred tree. It must be said that as a high-level life form, the depth of their research is definitely better than that of most people in the ninja world. However, just when Vegapunk was enjoying the absorption, with a bang, he felt a violent vibration in the entire spiritual space. What's going on? Vegapunk, who was suppressing the absorption of Kaguya Otsutsuki's memory, separated a part of his computing power and received Kaguya Otsutsuki's senses, and then found that Kaguya Otsutsuki was being beaten in the outside world. Uzumaki Naruto, whose body was burning with golden light, and Uchiha Sasuke, who was staring at the Rinnegan, were just like golden and purple rays, constantly attacking Kaguya Otsutsuki's body. As Vegapunk relied on the powerful mental power obtained by brainwave synchronization to suppress Kaguya Otsutsuki's spirit, Kaguya Otsutsuki's reaction ability and thinking ability also dropped like a cliff, and her combat power was directly cut in half, leaving only a little instinct. This is because Kaguya Otsutsuki herself has no combat wisdom, so she can't exert much combat power. Only instinct is left, but it doesn't reduce much. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Kaguya Otsutsuki's filial son Black Zetsu came to help his mother fight, relying on the possession ability to control Kaguya's body to block the attacks of Naruto and Sasuke, but he is still visibly at a disadvantage. That won't do. I haven't gotten many memories yet. Kaguya Otsutsuki is not like an ordinary human. Even if her mental power is suppressed, it is very difficult to read her memory. She can only squeeze it out bit by bit. Vegapunk estimated that it would take at least several hours to completely absorb the knowledge in her memory. No way. I have to take over. Sorry, Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke. Quantum chip. Start the combat program. Take over Kaguya Otsutsuki's body. A long time ago, Vegapunk discovered that he had no combat talent, not to mention exerting 200% of his combat power like the protagonists. Even fully exerting his combat power is a very difficult thing. For example, the body that Vegapunk is using now, the most basic genes come from a Cuba Cavendish, that is also a monster, that can be called a swordsman by instinct without any training. However, although Vegapunk inherited his talent for swordsmanship, in the specific performance, he can only exert about 60% of his combat power at most. It can be said that fighting really requires talent. King Xiaofeng can beat down the Shaolin monks with his taser Changquen, but Zhang Wuji has a top level configuration, but he has very few real achievements. This is a huge difference in fighting talent between the two sides. And Vegapunk's fighting talent can only be said to be almost equal to nothing, which is completely incomparable with his talent in scientific research. Fortunately, Vegapunk is not a hot-blooded man. He has long been aware of his talent. In order to prevent himself from becoming a stepping stone for being defeated by a genius across the world in a fantasy novel, he has already programmed a set of fighting programs into his quantum chip. Although the rigid fighting program cannot make people exert 200% of their fighting power, it is enough for him to exert his fighting power to 100% stably. This is actually a very remarkable ability. Although it seems that it is as easy for the protagonist of the comics to grow a species as easy as eating and drinking water. In fact, most people in the two worlds of Pirates and Naruto find it difficult to even exert their strength stably. In most cases, the strength of ordinary people is only close to 100%. Under the influence of extreme anger, sadness, or despair, the combat power will not rise like the protagonist, but will fall a lot. Therefore, with the quantum chip as a substitute, Vegapunk's combat power is not weak. Received, the combat program is activated, and the body is scanned. The scan results have been determined. A new combat mode model is established, based on the existing results. The model has been established, and the body is completely taken over. The battle begins. The eyes of Kaguya Otsutsuki in the outside world light up slightly, revealing an inorganic expression. The chakra on her body burst out instantly, expelling Black Zetsu. Mom, are you awake? What happened just now? Who is it? Is it Otsutsuki Hagoromo who did it? Black Zetsu asked loudly, but did not get an answer. Kaguya Otsutsuki just raised her arm gently, and with a sizzling sound, a bone blade suddenly grew out of her hand. Then, she waved her hand casually, and the Tao-seeking jade surrounding her body turned into a close-fitting black armor, wrapping her up from head to toe. In the end, Kaguya Otsutsuki looked at Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto with her indifferent eyes, which made the two of them feel cold all over. They always felt that the ancestor of chakra opposite them seemed to have turned into something inhuman. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 is playing for someone beyond the scope of the syllabus. Just when Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke were slightly shocked by the uncanny valley effect displayed by Kaguya Otsutsuki, Kaguya Otsutsuki had already raised the bone blade in her hand high. 80 God's Air Strike. The chakra physical technique originally performed with fists was now entangled with the terrifying power of the co-killing ash bone, and was transformed into the form of sword energy, which instantly permeated between heaven and earth. The high mountains in the distance were cut into flat ground, and the earth was split into canyons by the terrifying sword energy. The powerful sword energy was like a storm, completely sweeping hundreds of kilometers nearby, and everything was turned into ashes in this blow. It seems a bit too much. Vegapunk, who was observing the outside world in the spiritual world, took a breath of cold air. At this time, he suddenly remembered, the Otsutsuki clan doesn't seem to be very good at fighting. They are just powerful, but their fighting awareness is not high. Kaguya Otsutsuki is even more of a model of not being good at fighting. This guy's probably not even able to show 50% of his fighting power in a normal state. After the quantum chip went up, to play as a substitute, the fighting power seems to be too much. The two saviors will not die just like this, right? Fortunately, it seems that they are not dead. Fuck. The smoke dissipated, and Uzumaki Naruto's face was horrified, and he seemed to have not recovered yet, while Uchiha Sasuke covered his right arm, which was bleeding. He had cut it off by himself. The broken arm gradually dissipated in the air. The power of the common killing ash bones contained in the 80 Gods air attack easily annihilated it completely. If Uchiha Sasuke hadn't cut off his arm at a very fast speed, he would probably have ended up like this arm. Kamu Shuriken. Just at this moment, a huge Susanoo appeared behind Kaguya, and the dark space cracks turned into shurikens, cutting directly into her body. That was exactly Hatake Kakashi, who had just used Obito's Kamu ability to avoid the indiscriminate instant kill of the sword energy, and then suddenly jumped out of the Kamu space to attack. With a swish, Kaguya Otsutsuki disappeared in an instant, and then reappeared behind Hatake Kakashi's Susanoo, holding a dazzling ball of light in her hand. That's no way. Uchiha Sasuke, who had just used the power of the sky to grab Naruto and escaped a disaster and only paid the price of an arm, frowned and his face turned pale. The ball of light instantly swept out like a beam of light, and the powerful Susanoo disappeared like a bubble. If Kakashi hadn't quickly hidden back in the Kamu space, it would definitely turn into dust in an instant. Dust release. And it's the immortal dust release. Naruto's face was also grim. Does she know this ninjutsu originally? Or, looking down at the few people, Kaguya Otsutsuki looked calm, landed, and stepped on the roots of the sacred tree. At this time, the roots of the sacred tree began to sprout and grow, growing 7 or 8 human figures, and finally formed the image of Kaguya Otsutsuki. Would release, would clone. Is this guy really capable of learning our ninjutsu? Or did he absorb the memories of others through the illusion of infinite moon reading? Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto felt a little desperate. Although the original Kaguya Otsutsuki was powerful, she was definitely not perfect. The Otsutsuki clan's natural instinctive bloodline was already powerful, so naturally they would not pursue any ninjutsu training. This also led to the fact that, although the ninjas were far inferior to the Otsutsuki clan in absolute power, some wonderful ninjutsu had abilities that the Otsutsuki clan could not imagine. For example, the clone technique is one example. Uzumaki Naruto used a set of shadow clones and Rasengan from beginning to end. Even when fighting with Kaguya Otsutsuki, the shadow clones played a significant role. It can be said that the stronger the main body, the more powerful the ninjutsu. But now, Kaguya Otsutsuki also has their ninjutsu ability. Now it seems that they are afraid that they have no chance of winning. With Kaguya Otsutsuki's strength, even if there are only a few wood clones, the pure power is probably better than that of super shadow level ninjas like Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Before a few people could react, they saw the figures of the wood clones flash and disappear into the void. That is the space of Shai and Simin, and as the wood clones of the main body, they naturally have the right to use it. Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, and Hatake Kakashi all looked serious and vigilant, while Kaguya Otsutsuki herself manipulated the huge tree under her feet to turn into a tall tree man, and the whole person gradually sank into the tree man. That should be enough. Vegapunk muttered to himself. He was no longer prepared to let Kaguya Otsutsuki take action directly, otherwise these saviors might be killed directly. So he directly gave orders to the quantum chip. Kaguya Otsutsuki could not take action directly, but could only use offensive capabilities, and send several clones to fight at the same time, to balance the combat power of both sides. After that, Vegapunk ignored the battle outside. Projecting his spirit to the outside world would slow down the time he took to absorb those memories and knowledge. Moreover, Vegapunk's ambitions were even greater. In addition to memories and knowledge, he also secretly absorbed part of Kaguya's chakra. With this part of chakra as a sample, it was of great significance for Vegapunk to conduct research on chakra attribute fusion into bloodline net in the future, but in this way, it would naturally take longer. Finally absorbed it all, Vegapunk looked at the chaos below, like countless colored glass fragments, and breathed a sigh of relief. It's a pity that the infinite Tsukuyomi requires too many conditions, and Kaguya Otsutsuki doesn't have the principle of this technique in her mind. She just relies on her blood instinct to perform it. Otherwise, I can completely rely on this trick to absorb all the wisdom of a world. Anyway, I finally have a direction. I have also obtained a lot of data from Kaguya Otsutsuki's body instincts. The harvest is enough. It's time to cancel the infinite Tsukuyomi. I don't know how the battle outside is now. When Vegapunk shifted his attention to the outside, his face suddenly showed a speechless look. Because at this moment, Kaguya Otsutsuki was the only one standing outside. As for Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke and others, they were all hanging on the tree. Vegapunk's idea was very good, maintaining the same combat power and fighting with Uzumaki Naruto and others. However, the key was that this battle was not a blitzkrieg in the original work that was decided in more than 10 minutes, but a battle that lasted for almost 10 hours. Chapter 83 Seal. For Kaguya Otsutsuki, a battle of 10 hours is not important at all. 1000 years ago, when she fought against the brothers of the Six Paths Sage, the fighting time was calculated by the day. 10 hours is just a warm-up at most. However, for the two saviors, Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke, they entered the Six Paths level because of the Six Paths Sage's teachings. The yin-yang escape passed on to them by the Six Paths Sage, even if it is not the rootless water and the sourceless wood, is not completely their power. This resulted in the yin-yang escape chakra inherited by the two people, which could only be restored in a small part after being lost. If most of it was used up, it would really be gone. Therefore, the evenly matched battle at the beginning soon became one-sided due to the consumption of chakra. Kaguya Otsutsuki was just under the control of the quantum chip, slowly restoring the destroyed wooden clone. The savior team was already unable to cope with it, and it was completely defeated in just 2 or 3 hours. Oh my, this is really... Vegapunk frowned, sensing the empty world, and suddenly thought of a question. What should I do with Kaguya Otsutsuki? Vegapunk can control Kaguya Otsutsuki to release the Divine Tree World Advent Technique and Infinite Moon Reading, but once these two ninjutsu are released, he will not be able to use the ability of brainwave synchronization to control Kaguya Otsutsuki with the combined mental power of everyone. Of course, even if he doesn't control Kaguya Otsutsuki now, she probably won't have the ability to make trouble, because of the rough use of mental power to crush and forcibly extract memories. Kaguya Otsutsuki is now no different from an idiot, and it is difficult to recover. But even so, Vegapunk was still distressed, while crushing the mental fragments in Kaguya Otsutsuki's mind again and again, until those mental fragments were broken into slag, about the size of sand and dust, and finally let go. Even if Kaguya Otsutsuki's soul is no longer responsive, her body with infinite chakra alone is probably enough to start another ninja world war. Just like the power of the tailed beasts will promote the ambitions of those ninja villages, as long as a terrifying life like Kaguya Otsutsuki exists, don't even think about these ninjas having any peaceful thoughts. Vegapunk can even guarantee that the body of Kaguya Otsutsuki without consciousness will definitely cause a world-destroying disaster much faster than Kaguya Otsutsuki herself. After all, Kaguya Otsutsuki knows about sustainable development. Under normal circumstances, there will always be some humans left to reproduce. If those sick ninjas in the ninja world obtain that kind of powerful power, it is estimated that within a dozen years, the world will be destroyed by them. Wait, the tailed beasts, maybe I have a way. Vegapunk suddenly had a flash of inspiration in his mind, revealing a look of joy. Next, he first controlled Kaguya Otsutsuki's body and directly manipulated the arrival of the God Tree realm, draining the chakra of humans, leaving only the minimum chakra to maintain life. However, he did not directly drain the original chakra of everyone. These people may have a certain deficit, but there is no problem in maintaining life and health. After that, Vegapunk controlled Kaguya Otsutsuki's body again and directly moved in front of himself and Hancock. Hancock was still guarding Vegapunk's body. Seeing Kaguya Otsutsuki suddenly appear from space, he was startled and almost took action directly. I'm the one who controls this body now, Hancock. Vegapunk said quickly. Hancock was stunned for a moment before acting. Honey? Is that you? Yes, I will seal this body in a while. You have to keep an eye on her. This is our biggest gain this time. As he spoke, Vegapunk controlled Kaguya Otsutsuki's body to make hand seals. Although he did not show it on weekdays, Vegapunk's attainments in ninjutsu, especially in sealing techniques, are absolutely second to none. With a quantum chip, he is very adept at learning and analyzing these ninjutsu that require a very high amount of knowledge. Now he slightly modified the sealing technique. The original seal of the 4 symbols, 8 diagrams system was superimposed by him to the level of 64 hexagrams in one breath, and the one used to seal was not someone else, but Kaguya Otsutsuki herself, who was now controlling the seal. It is easy to seal yourself. After all, you can't resist. After being surrounded by 64 seals, Kaguya's huge chakra aura was instantly restrained. Even those seals themselves would absorb Kaguya's chakra to maintain the cycle. Theoretically, Kaguya would never be able to unlock the seal without external force. As Kaguya's chakra was completely sealed, the moon in the sky immediately returned to its original color, and the overwhelming sacred tree gradually withered and slowly shrank back. The sacred tree's body was Kaguya Otsutsuki. After losing this core, what was left outside was just some water without source and trees without roots. With the sound of crackling, the ninjas who were originally trapped in the cocoon woke up one by one and struggled out of the cocoon. However, even if they struggled out, they were still dizzy and weak in their limbs. The dizziness was caused by Vegapunk's ability to extract a lot of mental power through the brain synchronization. The weakness of the limbs was because the chakra in the body was almost drained by Vegapunk. In this case, it would take a long time for these ninjas to recover, and it would obviously not hinder Vegapunk's actions. I feel dizzy. What happened just now? Sarah, who had just emerged from the tree cocoon, said dizzy and felt that her body, which was originally full of vitality, now seemed to be rusted, and she was completely exhausted. Vegapunk also opened his eyes. Just now, he had almost been investing his mental power in the spiritual world and the physical body of Kaguya Otsutsuki, and now he finally returned to his physical body. After opening his eyes, Vegapunk saw Kaguya Otsutsuki's body lying limply on the side, while Hancock was holding Kaguya Otsutsuki's collar with one hand and looking at him with a worried look. Seeing that Vegapunk had woken up, Hancock was relieved. "Dear, you have recovered. I was worried that you would always be in that woman's body." Vegapunk rolled his eyes. "Don't worry, this woman's body will soon be in your body." Chapter 84 Huge Harvest and Return. What Vegapunk said about stuffing Kaguya Otsutsuki into Hancock's body was not just talk. The Otsutsuki clan is not a pure flesh and blood creature, but more like an energy life formed by a large amount of chakra accumulation. Therefore, its life essence is closer to the tailed beast. It is also because of the tailed beast that Vegapunk had a crazy idea in his head: why not create an Otsutsuki Jinkriki? In fact, in the later Boruto, there was indeed an Otsutsuki Jinkriki, that is, a guy who used the wedge of the Otsutsuki clan and the power of the Otsutsuki clan using the seal. To use the power of Kaguya Otsutsuki was just his initial plan, and the final idea must be to let Hancock directly absorb Kaguya Otsutsuki's power. As for why he didn't absorb it himself, that's because Vegapunk knew very well that, although his physical strength was already very high, due to various factors such as age and exercise, it was still a long way behind Hancock. In comparison, Hancock could completely seal, or even absorb Kaguya Otsutsuki's power, and he was just a little bit behind. Moreover, after absorbing the memories and knowledge of Kaguya Otsutsuki, Vegapunk also had some understanding of the wedge of the Otsutsuki clan. This kind of general power of reincarnation requires not only the qualifications of the person to be wedge qualified, but also the compatibility. At least the most obvious thing, such as gender, must be consistent. In other words, Hancock can undoubtedly absorb the power of Kaguya Otsutsuki better. After saying this, Vegapunk immediately took action. He saw him forming seals with both hands, and the original Kaguya Otsutsuki was quickly transformed into a huge chakra by his power. Then Vegapunk stretched out his hand and pressed it on Hancock's lower abdomen. Vegapunk's head was full of black lines, and he was absolutely sure that Hancock was definitely doing it on purpose. With the physical strength of the Pirate Queen, it might be a bit bloated to seal Kaguya Otsutsuki, but it would definitely not be like this now. Fortunately, the seal was over soon. Vegapunk withdrew his hand and looked at Hancock. "How is it? How do you feel?" Hearing the serious matter, Hancock's originally flushed face returned to seriousness. She clenched her fist and said, "The chakra has increased a lot, at least several times. However, more chakra is still in the seal. If you want to be able to fully use it, it will probably take a long time." That's good. You just need to adapt first. Vegapunk nodded. After you fully adapt to the power of this ancestor of chakra, I should have almost figured out what the so-called wedge is. By that time, Kaguya Otsutsuki's power can be completely handed over to Hancock. Even before that, Kaguya Otsutsuki herself can be used to plant trees. In the end, Vegapunk controlled Kaguya Otsutsuki to collect a lot of raw materials for the sacred tree, and even cut down the flower buds of the sacred tree. It is not impossible to create a sacred tree again. At this time, Vegapunk suddenly felt a trance in the outside world. He calmed down and saw that Hancock also had a strange look on his face. Obviously, he also felt the strange change. Is this time and space repulsion? Are we leaving? With this thought flashing through his mind, Vegapunk looked at a group of unconscious ninjas and immediately began to search. The ruins of the ancient country of Laulan gradually dissipated with the purple light that penetrated the sky and the earth, revealing 3 people standing on the seal array. Well, there were 3 people when they left, and there were still 3 people when they came back, but there was another life in a certain woman's belly, which was really an extraordinary harvest. Vegapunk's mind turned for a while, and he always felt that this statement seemed a little wrong, but when he looked at Hancock in front of him, he felt the terrifying oppression of her chakra, and he still smiled triumphantly. In addition to the sealed Kaguya, in the space of the former Kaguya, which can now be barely controlled by Hancock, most of the sacred tree was also placed, which can be said to be an excellent research material. Not to mention that Vegapunk also obtained almost all the knowledge in the ninja world, and after winning the battle, he also recovered a lot of spoils. Kakashi's pair of Kamu Manger Key, Uchiha Sasuke's Eternal Manger Key and Samzurai, and captured a lot of white Zetsu. It can be said that with so much knowledge, it is enough for Vegapunk's research on chakra to make a significant leap in a very short period of time, and a large amount of time travel data has been collected, which also saves him time to develop technology to travel through the world. I feel so uncomfortable. Sarah, who was idle throughout the journey of time travel, stood up with difficulty. After returning to the familiar world, she felt that her physical strength and spirit had recovered a lot, especially the dragon vein under her feet that had gradually calmed down, and the energy revealed made her body recover much faster. After a moment, Sarah was almost completely awake. Is this what it feels like to travel through the world? I remember that when Naruto and the others traveled through the world, they were not like me. Or is it because of my ability? No, the reason you are exhausted is not because of traveling through the world. You just traveled through the world and you were controlled by an illusion. Vegapunk complained speechlessly, and Sarah trembled all over. Being controlled by an illusion? It can't be you. Did you do something to me? If an ugly girl like you doesn't come up to me actively, my dear won't even look at me. Hancock, who was covering her belly, spoke coldly. Sarah turned her head to glance at Hancock and saw that there was a big hole in her clothes on her lower abdomen, and she could vaguely see some strange runes that had not disappeared. She immediately shrank her head again. Don't let your imagination run wild. Vegapunk knocked on Sarah's head, his face speechless. Go back and rest first. The dragon veins are calm now. We will start research tomorrow. Although Laulan has become a ruin, not all the houses have collapsed. At least after tidying up, it is still more than enough for 3 people to live in. The next morning, Vegapunk and Hancock began to clean up the ruins. Vegapunk planned to build a large experimental base here, and naturally would not leave the ruins of Laulan there all the time. With the ability to manipulate chakras and magnetic fields, the cleaning of the ruins and the establishment of a new laboratory were very fast. In just 3 days, the new laboratory had been established in Laulan. Chapter 85 Space Teleportation Technology. After Vegapunk set up the laboratory in Laulan, about a year passed quickly. A year was not a big deal in this war-torn world. However, the changes in the Kingdom of Wind and the Kingdom of the Sea over the past year made many people feel extremely unfamiliar. The Kingdom of Wind changed from a completely desert area to a savanna terrain. All kinds of mineral deposits originally buried under the desert were developed. As the center of meteorological changes, the sand village is now almost becoming a small city. On the other hand, the number of ninjas in the sand village has not increased much, but the quality has improved a lot. In the entire sand village, there is no ninja weaker than the Chunin. Ninjas with the strength of Jonin in the past have almost accounted for a quarter of all the ninjas in the Sand Village. The changes in the Kingdom of the Sea are also not small. The emergence of a large number of new steel ships and even warships has made those maritime countries truly inviolable countries. Even the most powerful ninjas would not want to fight destroyers at sea. As for the ninja villages within the country, a large number of ninjas with animal abilities appeared. Each of them was incredibly powerful. Even those with animal abilities also had various strange abilities. Strange ninjas like the electric eel ninja and the mantis shrimp ninja almost locked the level of Jonin when they had animal abilities. When Vegapunk started researching, he deliberately distinguished the technology trees of the two ninja villages. In fact, although Vegapunk often said that the ninjas in those ninja villages were mentally ill, in terms of technology research alone, the world's most advanced chakra technology was almost in the hands of the ninjas in these ninja villages. It can be said that each ninja village can be regarded as a large scientific research base, with many skilled technicians who can always research some black technology more or less with chakra. After Vegapunk passed on his technology research, these people would automatically rely on their own abilities to research and develop it. In order to prevent all technologies from being homogenized, Vegapunk would use different technologies in different ninja villages. Different technology trees will bring different inspirations. Just like after the discovery of chakra power in the ninja world, Vegapunk has made great breakthroughs in several scientific research. And today, Vegapunk's research has also ushered in a new breakthrough. Have you adjusted it? The experimental values have been adjusted, and the space parameters are very normal. The space expansion rate is normal. The space bubble has been formed. Quantum entanglement has been completed, and the transmission is ready. Okay, start the transmission now. As the enthusiastic voice came from the laboratory, Vegapunk sat in the chair and looked at the helpers gathered in front of him. Rather than saying helpers, it is better to say that they are transformed shadow clones. Those who are adjusting the data and conducting experiments in full swing are actually a group of metal puppets. In fact, Vegapunk actually bypassed the artificial intelligence technology and just sealed his own shadow clones in these metal puppets. Just like the tail beasts can also affect the Jinkriki through the seal runes specially set up by Vegapunk are so that the shadow clone inside can control the external metal body. A large number of electronic chips are engraved inside the body for calculation assistance, which improves the performance of the shadow clone, and the large amount of chakra stored inside also increases the existence time of the shadow clone. The most important thing is that, even if the shadow clone dissipates, their memories will not be instantly transmitted back, but will be retained in the chip of the metal puppet, allowing Vegapunk to selectively read slowly. In this way, Vegapunk can use the shadow clone to help him conduct research on a large scale without worrying about the problem of memory reflux. In fact, Vegapunk also thought about cloning himself as an experimental assistant to advance research, but out of his understanding of his own personality and his arrogance in his wisdom, he finally rejected this idea. If an ordinary clone can maintain absolute loyalty for 10 years, then a clone like the one that Vegapunk imagined to be endowed with his own wisdom and inherited his own personality may find a way to rebel in less than 3 days. However, the shadow clone technology in the Naruto world gave Vegapunk the perfect ability to create clones. The shadow clone has the same thinking ability as Vegapunk, but because it is not a truly complete life, it is impossible to resist Vegapunk. After dissipating, it can also directly transfer memories to itself. It is simply a super scientific research assistant. The second generation Hokage who developed this ninjutsu can also be called a generation of chakra research genius. Unfortunately, although the various ninjutsu developed by this research master have unlimited potential, it is his disciples who really use these ninjutsu to the limit. For example, Flying Thunder God to Minato Namake's Impure World Reincarnation to Orochimaru and Kabuto Yakushi, Shadow Clone Technique to Uzumaki Naruto. After a period of rambling thoughts, Vegapunk quickly came back to his senses and turned to look at the experiment currently underway. It was a joint experiment called the Space Teleportation Array in the small personal space. In fact, it can also be called an experiment. The Space Teleportation Array has actually been developed long ago, by converting the flying thunder god array into the form of a talisman, and then matching 2 flying thunder god arrays, you can teleport at will. But there are many other problems during this period. First, you must have a certain perception ability to perceive the corresponding flying thunder god array for teleportation. After drawing another enhanced perception array, the problem was finally solved. The second problem is that long distance teleportation requires too much chakra. The farther the distance, the more difficult it is to perceive, and the more chakra is needed. Even Vegapunk himself cannot solve this problem, because this is completely a matter of the law of conservation of mass. Vegapunk's technology is not yet so powerful that it can violate even this basic law. But soon, Vegapunk thought of a way to bypass it, which is to jump coordinates through different spaces. In other words, it is to create a small special space as a transit station, and use this method to bypass the chakra consumed by the long distance and the strong induction required. It started. The space bubble is about to take shape. The space wall has stabilized, and the expansion coefficient is gradually returning to 0. Perform a space jump. 3, 2, 1. Start. Space jump successful. Prepare for reverse teleportation. Reverse teleportation is completely successful. The teleported object has appeared in the Sea Kingdom. Our experiment was successful. Chapter 86 Obito's doubts. Laulan, the first space station to be established, with a burst of dazzling light, a woman with long brown hair, gorgeous appearance, and attractive curves came out, looked around, pursed her attractive red lips, and a look of surprise appeared on her face. Is this the Kingdom of Wind? It's incredible. In less than a minute, I came here from the capital of the Kingdom of Sea. Looking at the completely different scenery around, and the Kingdom of Sea, feeling the breeze with a bit of restlessness, it is completely different from the foggy environment of the Kingdom of Sea, and even the sun in the sky seems to be much brighter than the fireball that appears in the fog of the Kingdom of Sea. To be precise, this place does not belong to the Kingdom of Wind. It should be called Laulan, but I didn't expect that the person coming here is you, Meditarumi. Hearing the crisp voice with a bit of heroic spirit, Meditarumi turned her head quickly and saw the heroic Yikang's hang with two-color hair and one hand on his waist, looking at her. The 5th Kazakage? You're here? Meditarumi was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect that there was such a big shot waiting for her here. But after thinking about it carefully, it didn't seem strange. No matter how noble Yikang's current status is, it all came from Vegapunk's appreciation. Even if Yikang has already secured the position of Kazakage in the Sand Village, if Vegapunk is not satisfied, he can be replaced with just one word. To put it bluntly, Yikang's original strength just touched the edge of the cage level. To Vegapunk, he was just a mass-produced combat unit that could be mass-produced. The Sand Ninjas naturally knew who to choose between the Kazakage and Vegapunk. In other words, around a genius like Vegapunk, anyone would become dim. Anyway, I don't have much to do in the Sand Village, or the most important thing for me is to serve Lord Vegapunk well, and naturally I will follow wherever the Lord goes. Yikang seemed to speak in a self-deprecating manner, but there was no loss on his face. Even if it is managing a village, Yikang can't do it well now. The current Sand Village has become a small city with nearly 1 million people. With Yikang's level of management, the original ninja village is a bit difficult, let alone the current city. If she wants to help, all she can do is delay the work efficiency of the management type intelligent robot. Why is this so? Obviously, she has become the Wind Shadow and has obtained a powerful bloodline elimination ability, but she always feels that she is completely redundant in the entire Sand Village. Occasionally, even if there are ninjas who come to find her, the first thing they ask is whether Dr. Vegapunk's invention research has been successful and whether he needs his loyal Sand Ninja experimental subjects. Fortunately, Yikang himself does not have much desire for power and has become accustomed to his position. Occasionally, when Vegapunk is conducting experiments, he can still help. This time space teleportation array experiment can be said to be a technological innovation that changes the whole world. Yikang is also very concerned about it. After the experiment was successful, he applied to become one of the first volunteers for space transfer, and therefore directly met Terumi Medi, who was also rushing to conduct space transfer. Serve Master Vegapunk? Meditarumi narrowed her eyes slightly. This woman actually called him master directly. Where is your self-esteem as the Kazakage? Exclamation mark. Yi Kang seemed to have sensed something. He looked at Meditarumi and smiled brightly. Hey, what are you two doing standing there? Don't disturb the next round of space transfer experiment. Next, we need to calculate the chakra energy of material space transfer. A metal puppet came over and waved his hand to drive the two away. Meditarumi and Yi Kang looked at each other and quickly made way. By the way, where is Master Vegapunk now? I haven't seen him for a long time. I don't know how he is doing here now. Has he lost weight? Meditarumi looked at Yi Kang and asked. Yi Kang glanced at Meditarumi. Since the experiment was successful, he went to attend the celebration banquet. Do you want to go and take a look? Forget it. I'd better not go. I always feel that you have bad intentions. Meditarumi looked at Yi Kang strangely, but did not move. Yi Kang muttered to himself, he is really sharp. You know, that domineering Hancock said directly that after this banquet, he would take Lord Vegapunk to celebrate alone. Anyone who disturbed him would probably be kicked away. After all, today is Lord Vegapunk's 16th birthday, physical age. Hancock had said long ago that he would be the first to help Vegapunk become an adult. During this period, he has increased his vigilance against all the women around Vegapunk several times. In the dark and humid cave, a mysterious man wearing a vortex mask was sitting on a stone chair, lowering his head to listen to the reports of some white creatures. You mean, you met other white Zetsu? Yes, Abato. You don't know how surprised I was at that time. I even asked them if they felt like pooping, but they said I was an idiot. It was too much. The white Zetsu on the opposite side said with a dance of joy. The mysterious man wearing a whirlpool mask ignored the idiotic remarks behind the white Zetsu. His face under the mask frowned. You white Zetsu were all cultivated with Hashirama cells. Could it be that the other party is from Konoha? Only Konoha still has Hashirama cells and can cultivate new white Zetsu. Apart from that, could it be that Uchiha Madara has other backups? Of course, this is just the idea of the masked man who thinks he is the mastermind. Black Zetsu, did Uchiha Madara leave any other backups? The masked man looked at the half black and half white Zetsu and asked. At this moment, the real mastermind, Black Zetsu, was even more confused. Only he knew the true identity of white Zetsu. It was not just a creature created by Hashirama cells, or Hashirama cells were just an unnecessary condition. The real white Zetsu was actually created by the divine tree. If Hashirama cells were not used, a living person could actually be transformed into a white Zetsu using the divine tree. But without the involvement of the divine tree, how could a white Zetsu be born under normal circumstances? Of course not. Impossible. Black Zetsu immediately shook his head to deny it, and Obito remained indifferent. To put it bluntly, in Obito's eyes, Black Zetsu was just a creation of Uchiha Madara's consciousness. Regardless of whether what he said was true or not, even if it was true, it was possible that Uchiha Madara deliberately did not give him the memory of the other white Zetsu. It seems that we have to investigate it carefully. At this moment, both Black Zetsu and Obito had the same idea. Chapter 87, Adulthood and Discovery. Putting aside Black Zetsu and Obito who have already started to act, Vegapunk has already celebrated the birthday of his physical body. In the space of the first ball, Vegapunk slowly opened his eyes, felt the warm touch on his body, and the breath with a faint fragrance on his face, and couldn't help but move his body slightly. Dear, you are awake. Hearing the soft and hoarse voice in his ear, Vegapunk turned his head, and Hancock, who was lying in his arms, looked at him obsessively, with a light flashing in her quiet beautiful eyes, and a blush on her jade-like face, full of a faint shyness and sweetness. Recovering so quickly, Vegapunk thought to himself, Hancock was very crazy last night, almost draining herself dry, and finally had to use electromagnetic ability to cheat, so that she didn't lose face completely. She recovered after just a sleep, which made people have to admire her physique and recovery ability. His own physique was considered strong enough, but it was far inferior to Hancock's physique, after fusing with Kaguya Otsutsuki's chakra. Now he felt lazy all over, and didn't want to move. Hancock stretched out her jade hand and gently stroked Vegapunk's chest. A warm force penetrated his body, and made Vegapunk recover quickly. That was extremely pure Yang-Tun chakra. After becoming Kaguya Otsutsuki's Jinkriki, Hancock had been constantly absorbing the chakra of the goddess of Aang, and his own physique had gradually changed. 1 year was enough for Hancock to have a sage body comparable to Hashirama Senju. Her Yang-Tun chakra was naturally extremely pure. It might be an exaggeration to say that it could bring back the dead to life, but it was a piece of cake to recover some physical fatigue. Although his body has fully recovered, Vegapunk is still a little tired and feels lazy. Similarly, Hancock is also a little tired after a night of madness. The two did not do anything else. They just hugged each other and spent an hour or two quietly before getting up. As the Jinkriki of Kaguya Otsutsuki, Hancock also has the authority to manipulate the space of 10 no go ch. For some reason, Hancock pulled Vegapunk to the space of 10 no go ch last night, and then Vegapunk found speechlessly that this place had been designed as a wedding room by Hancock. Now that the matter is over, Hancock took Vegapunk's hand and left the space directly through her ability. After leaving the space, Hancock stretched out her hand to summon a few white Zetsu and prepared breakfast. This is also the ability. After becoming the Jinkriki of Otsutsuki, she can naturally control creatures such as white Zetsu, and even with the power of the sacred tree, she can slowly give birth to some white Zetsu, and Hancock treats them as free servants. Without a large number of humans as material, Hancock did not produce many white Zetsu, only more than 10 in total. Vegapunk once studied this plant life that was very similar to humans out of curiosity, and strengthened them to a certain extent. Therefore, these white Zetsu in front of him are much stronger than ordinary white Zetsu in terms of intelligence and combat power. On weekdays, they will modify their body appearance and become ordinary human appearance to avoid scaring others. It tastes good. As expected, your intelligence has improved a lot, Vegapunk said to the white Zetsu who turned into a pretty maid while eating breakfast. This is all thanks to you, Doctor. It is you who made us independent lives. The white Zetsu maid behind him lowered her head and said lightly, in theory, although white Zetsu can change into human appearance, they are close to plant life and do not have normal human senses. They are not even a complete independent life. Their intelligence and world outlook will also be different from humans. After a series of research, although Vegapunk did not cut off the connection between white Zetsu and the sacred tree, he modified their genes to give them the 5 senses of normal humans, and their values and intelligence became closer to humans. Otherwise, the breakfast made by pure white Zetsu would probably taste no different from ordinary nutritional supplements. There is one thing I want to tell the doctor. We have met a lot of our kind underground during this period. It seems that they are trying to find out about Laolan. The same kind? New white Zetsu? It's time for them to come. Black Zetsu and Obito are late to act now. Vegapunk put down his chopsticks and said speechlessly. If it were before, Vegapunk might have been a little interested in them, but now, after a trip to the parallel world, there is almost nothing in the Naruto world that can impress him. Whether it is Obito's Kamui or Black Zetsu created by Yin Yang release, in Vegapunk's eyes, there is no mystery. It can only be said that they appeared too late. Today's Vegapunk has already upgraded its guns and cannons. To be honest, when the Land of Water took control of the Mist Village, Vegapunk had already prepared to deal with Obito. As a result, Obito did not show up at that time for some reason. Later, according to Vegapunk's analysis, it is very likely that Obito had just caused the Ninetales rebellion and was recovering from his injuries. Or was it because he killed his teacher and his wife, so he was in a period of burnout? Anyway, Obito did not take any action during that period. After the matter was done, Obito did not bother the Mist Village again. This is a very normal thing. Obito's Kamu ability is just weird and unpredictable. Hard power cannot really confront a big ninja village. In the case of the reorganized Sea Village, which was already on guard, Obito could not repeat his previous feat of controlling the 4th Mizukage. In fact, Obito did not show up, and there was another idea, which was to guide the Sea Village to cast hatred on the Konoha village with the Uchiha family. Although Obito is also a member of the Uchiha clan, and the Uchiha clan has done nothing wrong to Obito, who has been obsessed with the Moon Eye project, has already prepared to eliminate this unexpected factor. The Samsara required for the Moon Eye project is an evolution of the Uchiha family Sharingan. For this reason, both Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obito actually want to destroy the Uchiha clan intentionally or unintentionally, to reduce the occurrence of accidents. Chapter 88 Dispatching. Unfortunately, after about 2 years, the Sea Village developed in full swing, but it has not directly fought with Konoha. The main reason is that the strength of the Sea Village is still growing rapidly, and the life is getting better and better. There is no need to go to war with Konoha in the short term. Maybe the strength of the Sea Village has reached its peak that day, or it feels that it can easily crush Konoha, so it will bring up this matter and then go to trouble Konoha. Uchiha Obito's expectations were not met, and although he was a little annoyed, there was nothing he could do. As for Black Zetsu, he didn't care about it. In fact, only Uchiha Obito and Uchiha Madara were afraid of the Uchiha clan. Black Zetsu knew very well that without Indra and Ashura's chakra, the Uchiha clan and the Senju clan could not get the samurai, no matter how hard they tried. Even if the Uchiha clan could be preserved, it would be a better result for Black Zetsu. Over the past thousands of years, his plans have failed countless times, and he has long developed an extremely conservative character. If the Uchiha clan is completely exterminated, it will be difficult to get the samurai in the future, and the plan can only be a desperate attempt. Although this plan is the closest to success, who knows what the result will be before the end? Black Zetsu naturally wants to keep some backup. But the problem of White Zetsu is different. The real biggest contributor to the Moon Eye plan is not Black Zetsu, the mastermind behind the scenes, but White Zetsu and other conscientious tools. It is precisely because of these extremely large numbers, high flexibility, strong latent, and sometimes directly replace others with White Zetsu, that the Moon Eye plan can be promoted so smoothly. Otherwise, let alone Uchiha Obito, even if the entire Akatsuki organization is counted, they can't even think of collecting all the tailed beasts. You know, the existence of the Jinchuriki is the top secret of a ninja village, not to mention the whereabouts of the Jinchuriki. Although there are occasionally special cases like Gaara and Uzumaki Naruto, in most cases, it is not so easy to find out where the Jinchuriki of a ninja village is. Because of their powerful chakra and obvious fighting characteristics, Jinchuriki are bound to be discovered as long as a fight occurs. If they cannot collect all the tailed beasts in a short period of time, perhaps only 1 or 2 times will completely expose the existence of Akatsuki. When the several major ninja villages join forces, even Nagato, who has the samurai, will definitely not be an opponent. Nagato is very powerful, but it does not mean he is invincible. It can even be said that he is still in the category of ordinary ninjas. The so-called ordinary ninjas are those who test each other, conceal their own intelligence, test the other party's intelligence, and then find weaknesses and break them with one blow. Although Nagato's ability is very strong, once the intelligence is completely revealed, it is still within the scope of a ninja village. It can even be said that Nagato is the ceiling of ordinary ninjas, and above them are those monsters that ordinary ninjas have absolutely no way to defeat, whether they know the intelligence or not. In this case, Akatsuki finally collected most of the tailed beasts and made the plan successful. It must be said that White Zetsu, who has a strong ability to spy on intelligence, is the one who contributed the most. Therefore, once the secret of White Zetsu is leaked before the plan is launched, the blow to the entire Moon Eye plan can be said to be fatal. Vegapunk thought well. Just when the night just fell, Uchiha Obito had already come to the outskirts of Lowland Base in person. In this regard, Black Zetsu, who was quite worried, did not hesitate to follow Obito here. There was no way. Although Black Zetsu's plan had not succeeded for thousands of years, he also thought he was knowledgeable, and did not think that there was anything beyond his imagination in this ninja world. However, the unfamiliar White Zetsu still broke Black Zetsu's usual psychological advantage. How did the opponent's White Zetsu come from? The most important thing is that, even if the White Zetsu was made by relying on the technology of gene replication, those White Zetsu should be born to obey his orders. At least he should have some sense. How could such a strange White Zetsu appear? Unless there is a second sacred tree in this world. Is there another new Otsutsuki coming to this ninja world? Black Zetsu knew everything about the Otsutsuki clan. After all, when Kaguya Otsutsuki split him, she just wanted him to save her. She didn't teach him too much knowledge. but at least he knew the existence of the Otsutsuki clan, and knew that Kaguya Otsutsuki and the Otsutsuki clan were not on good terms. In this case, how could Black Zetsu be at ease? Uchiha Obito's Kamu ability is indeed extremely rare. Even among the Otsutsuki clan, it is considered a rare ability, but if you want to test the Otsutsuki with this ability alone, it would be too whimsical. It doesn't matter if Obito is caught. If he pulls out the moon eye and other things, I'm afraid even his mother will be in danger. Of course, he can't just sit there and wait. Black Zetsu, your reaction this time is very unusual. Is there any secret here? Standing on the sand dune, the cold wind blew across Uchiha Obito's collar, making the black coat with red clouds rustle. Well, I always have a bad feeling. Black Zetsu, who stood behind Obito like a pitcher plant, said. His yin-yang face showed no expression, but his performance was different from usual, so Black Zetsu did not deny it. Feeling. It seems that there are really many secrets here. Uchiha Obito did not think that Black Zetsu, who was not even a human, had any wrong feelings. As the consciousness of Uchiha Madara, it was normal for Black Zetsu to have some abilities that were different from ordinary people. Speaking of which, whether it is the Kingdom of Wind or the Kingdom of Water, the changes in this period of time are really great. As far as I know, this change should be because of that little guy named Vegapunk. Uchiha Obito suddenly asked. After hearing this, Black Zetsu nodded. Yes, that guy is indeed a genius among geniuses. It's a pity that we haven't had much contact with him all this time. With most of the white Zetsu asleep, it is naturally impossible for Black Zetsu to really collect all the information, especially Vegapunk and others who have observation haki and are extremely sensitive to the surveillance of white Zetsu. After being almost caught several times, all the white Zetsu have already stayed away from them. Now think about it, such a dangerous person should be killed earlier, instead of allowing him to research some dangerous technology. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Discovery. Oh, I'm so full. Vegapunk covered his round belly with a helpless look on his face. Let's use the quantum chip to control the body to speed up digestion. I always feel that Hancock is a little obsessed now. When eating, Hancock sat on Vegapunk's lap and fed him little by little. Although it looked beautiful, Hancock was obviously not familiar with how to serve others. At the same time, as a person in the pirate world, Hancock understood that food should be eaten as much as possible. So in Hancock's pitiful eyes, Vegapunk ate more than 3 times his own weight in one meal. As a scientist who rarely exercises himself, he can't return to life, so he can only use the quantum chip in his brain to force the body to digest food. Too enthusiastic. It's really distressing. Although he said so, Vegapunk knew very well that Hancock's enthusiasm was not only because of her own personality, but also mixed with a little inferiority. Hancock in this world is different from the one in the original book. She has no experience of being the Queen of Nine Snake Island. Because she has always stayed by Vegapunk's side, she has not shown her face and become the most recognized beauty in the pirate world. On the contrary, she was exchanged from the Celestial Dragons by Vegapunk. Although Vegapunk helped her to get revenge in the later period, her experience as a slave, the most unbearable side, has been fully revealed to Vegapunk. This makes Hancock's inferiority complex linger in her heart when facing Vegapunk. It can be said that the more arrogant her appearance is to cover up, the more serious her inferiority complex is. The crazy boldness and obedience at night, and the excessive concern for Vegapunk during the day, are all for this reason. Hancock, who is arrogant on the surface, actually puts herself in a lower position to serve Vegapunk. Vegapunk can't do anything about this. He is just a scientist, not a psychologist, and can't solve any problems such as psychological shadows. Some people's childhood can heal their whole life, while others need to heal their childhood throughout their life. Without a doubt, Hancock belongs to the latter. Under the effect of the quantum chip in the brain, Vegapunk's stomach soon deflated, and a large amount of food was converted into nutrients and stored in his body. Vegapunk touched his chin So much energy is enough to catch up with the usual high energy nutrient solution. It's better to sleep in the training cabin and strengthen the body. Although he didn't exercise much, relying on the high technology he developed, Vegapunk's physical progress has actually been advancing by leaps and bounds, even faster than those geniuses in the pirate world who work hard every day. However, there is nothing much to say about his domineering. His observation domineering can be called top-notch, but the armed domineering and the high-level domineering, which are mainly used for combat, can only be regarded as good skills, but the quality is extremely poor, and the other has simply given up awakening. In addition, his own combat awareness is very poor, and he can only rely on the combat program in the quantum chip, so even with such good conditions, Vegapunk is still not a top-level strongman. However, Vegapunk didn't care. After all, he was just a scientist, and he was training his body, just to be on the safe side. While Vegapunk was still thinking about something, his expression suddenly changed slightly. The quantum chip in his brain quickly gave him an alarm, indicating that someone had invaded the inner part of the base, and he immediately stood up. I don't know which fool dared to break into my experimental base. The defense measures here are not so easy to deal with. He said it, but Vegapunk had already had an idea in his heart. There were not many people in the world who could break into his experimental base, and those who could enter the inner circle silently were even rarer. To enter here silently, it requires not only strength, but also some strange ninjutsu. Jiraiya's Todoroki's technique, or Black Zetsu or Obito? It should be the latter two that are more likely. It's not that Vegapunk thinks Jiraiya will not invade his experimental base. In fact, as a ninja, this kind of sneaky invasion is almost instinctive, and there is nothing to blame. However, Konoha is in a mess now. It just signed a peace agreement with the Kumo ninja a year ago, and it also involved Hyuga Hisashi. Now the Konoha ninjas are complaining and disunited, and the third Hokage is in a mess. In this situation, Jiraiya, who appears to be a playboy, but actually cares about Konoha more than anyone else, should not come and make enemies so easily. Dear, it seems that there are little mice in the base. As soon as Vegapunk opened the door of the room, he saw Hancock standing in front of him with a somewhat unhappy expression on his face. Yes, I'm going to see where this mouse came from. Vegapunk spoke calmly, and a projection suddenly appeared in the air. It was a tiny monitor called a hovering loop that was spread throughout the space base. Naturally, it was also a technological product made by Vegapunk imitating a certain upside down man. However, compared to a certain hanged man who can monitor the entire academy city, even Vegapunk, who has electromagnetic abilities, can only use this nano-level monitor in a confined space like the experimental base. It is unknown how the hanged man solved the problem of the nano-monitor flowing with the air and out of the signal range. The monitor quickly replayed the process of the base being invaded. Only a phantom was seen swaggering out of the wall of the base. At the same time, a black monster appeared in the base's underground. It's them. Do you think you can come and go in my base with your special attributes and space-time ninjutsu? Vegapunk sneered. It's just right. Let the war Greyman who has just been given a new body go and fight them. Let them know that not every place can be broken into. In a world called D&D, there is such a saying that a prepared wizard is invincible, and the wizards in that world, to a certain extent, are actually a profession similar to scientists. They also exchange knowledge for power, but it is more intuitive. Therefore, this sentence also applies to Vegapunk. Chapter 90 Obito vs Battle Greyman. In this world, where knowledge can be converted into power, well-prepared top scientists are truly invincible. Whether it is Uchiha Obito or Black Zetsu, their intelligence has long been thoroughly studied by Vegapunk. Daring to break into the experimental base is basically no different from seeking death. Of course, they themselves would not have such an idea. Vegapunk found a chair in the laboratory, sat down, and then enlarged the projection, ready to appreciate the struggle of these two unlucky guys. Suddenly, Vegapunk felt a fragrant breeze entering his arms, and Hancock had squeezed into his arms. Is that the little bug that broke in? Humph, it's really disappointing. Do you want me to wipe them out? Why, Hancock, are you interested? Vegapunk hugged Hancock's slender waist and asked in her ear. Hancock blushed slightly. I'm indeed very interested. Since I got the power of that woman named Kaguya Rotsatsuki, I still don't know how strong I am. I see, you want to experiment with your new power. In that case, when the experiment of Battle Greymon is over, Hancock, you can also fight with them. Vegapunk shrugged and said indifferently, as if he had already determined the fate of Uchiha Obito and Black Zetsu. I always feel something is wrong. The phantom of Uchiha Obito stood in place, frowned, and said, we seem to be monitored. The hovering loop was so tiny that Uchiha Obito could not feel it at all, but as a ninja, the intuition that was tempered by thousands of times made Uchiha Obito feel like a thorn in his back. Vegapunk couldn't do anything about this. His current technological means had not yet reached the point where even intuition could be deceived. In fact, intuition was indeed mysterious. Only those muscular warriors who had experienced hundreds of battles could comprehend this mysterious sense in constant battles. Many mages who relied on wisdom to fight the enemy were sometimes defeated by this humble intuition. They were broken by some muscular warriors who relied on brute force and sudden actions, and then they were shown off by brute force. Fortunately, the gap between Vegapunk and Obito could not be made up by intuition. Although Obito felt something was wrong, he could not find the location of the observer anyway. Black Zetsu looked around. He did not dare to underestimate Obito's intuition, but as a yin-style chakra creature, he himself was not a complete life. In some aspects, he was far from a real life form, so naturally he found nothing. Something is coming, be careful. Obito, who was uneasy, warned loudly. Although he had the protection of Camus, and Black Zetsu was a strange and tenacious special life form, Obito was still on guard. He vaguely felt that the enemy coming from the opposite side had the ability to threaten him. With a swish, a powerful Dragon Man robot full of violent beauty appeared on the opposite side. Obito's eyes shrank slightly. The Dragon Man robot just now appeared in an extremely sudden way, as if it was a space-time ninjutsu. Invader, die. War Greymon roared loudly, and then chopped it down with one claw. Seeing the sudden appearance of this War Greymon, Obito did not dare to neglect it, and used the Camus ability at a very fast speed. The claws missed, of course, but Obito's expression changed drastically. He felt a sharp pain in his Manjaki Sharingan, and actually shed tears of blood. As the claws of War Greymon slashed across, the space seemed to be disturbed in some strange way. Fortunately, Obito's Camus was quite powerful. He forcibly resisted the disturbed space fluctuations, and forcibly smoothed them out, preventing Obito from being ejected or shattered by the space. But because of this, Obito's Camus Manjaki overdrew too much of his pupil power at once, and tears of blood flowed on the spot. No, I can't use Camus anymore. Taking several steps back, Obito turned directly from illusion to reality, and left the Camus space. The previous blow almost reduced the Camus' pupil power by 30%. If he forced it again, Obito would become blind. Even if Obito relied on Hashirama cells, his eyes could slowly recover, but before that, he would probably have been cut into pieces by War Greymon. Would release Hell's Chaos. As Obito roared, a thick tree trunk grew out of the ground and directly wrapped around the body of War Greymon. Battle Tornado. With a wild shout, War Greymon spun at high speed. A pair of extremely sharp alloy claws instantly shaved the trees summoned by Wood Release, which were harder than steel, into powder during the high-speed vibration and rotation. Damn it, this guy doesn't seem to be driven by chakra. Obito gritted his teeth and said, rolling and crawling to avoid the battle tornado. As for Black Zetsu, he had already used the method of burrowing underground to hide underground. Would Release ninjutsu has the ability to absorb chakra, which is a natural restraint for all ninjas. However, in the face of real super strength metal and physical destruction, it is only harder than ordinary wood. And those harder woods are obviously not as good as the alloy that constitutes War Greymon's body. Even though after leaving the pirate world, the strength of War Greymon's body has decreased due to the lack of some special metals, the metal transformed by Vegapunk using the magnetic field ability is definitely not something that ordinary steel can touch. At least it was much stronger than Obito's Would Release. In a flash, War Greymon disappeared again, and appeared behind Obito, sweeping across with another claw. Since Vegapunk completely developed the space-time ninjutsu of the chakra system, War Greymon has also undergone certain modifications, and can use space-time ninjutsu. Of course, this kind of teleportation can only be used inside the experimental base, mainly because Wargreymon has no perception ability and must enter the space coordinates into the base's main computer. However, if it is limited to the base, Wargreymon's space transfer ability is even far greater than that of the Golden Flash Minato Namikaze, because he does not need any medium at all to teleport easily. Obito felt that his soul was surging, and he lowered his head quickly. With a swish, a small piece of his scalp with black hair fell directly into the air, and even the vortex mask on his face was cut off a small part of the top. Feeling the warm liquid left on his head, Obito was terrified, and immediately turned around and jumped up, drew out his sickle, and chopped over. With a ding sound, Wargreymon raised his arm. The sickle in Obito's hand, which was passed down from Uchiha Madara, and had a lot of chakra and metal added to it, only drew a flash of fire on the steel arm, and left a tiny white scratch. Chapter 91 Hancock appears. Looking at his own results, Obito's face changed slightly, and he no longer had the idea of fighting with Wargreymon. His attacks could not break the defense at all, so what was the point of fighting? If the opponent was a human, Uchiha Obito could still risk using Kamu, sucking the opponent into the Kamu space, and starving him to death. But the opponent was a robot, and if he was sucked into the Kamu space, he would not be able to deal with him, and he would never be able to use Kamu again in the future. After all, God knows how long this robot can be on standby. Maybe he will die of old age, and the robot will still be alive, and well in the Kamu space. In this case, it is better to escape first. Uchiha Obito only hated that he was too arrogant because of his Kamu power. Otherwise, he would have gathered all the people in the Akatsuki organization and directly flattened this base. After I go back, I must get Kakishi's Kamu Eye. As long as I have two Kamu Eyes, I can easily destroy even this robot in front of me. Kamu's power is mysterious and unpredictable. It is a rare ninjutsu that can have a certain effect on strong people at the level of Bloodline Net in the main Gekkai stage. It even has the power to fight against the truth-seeking Jade. However, Obito only has one single eye, so he is more than enough to protect himself, but not enough to attack. Now he has made up his mind to reunite his Kamu Eye, but the question is, can he escape from Vegapunk's base? At this moment, Vegapunk was sitting on a chair, looking at the embarrassed Obito in the projection, and the black and white Zetsu who were hiding underground and couldn't leave, with a smile on his face, as if he was watching a monkey show. Hancock sat in Vegapunk's arms, quietly watching Obito and Black Zetsu being forced into a desperate situation. They are too weak, and I'm almost not interested. Then I will let Wargreymon catch them both. Vegapunk said, but Hancock shook his head. It can be used to warm up for me. I haven't fought for a long time. Even if I exercise every day, I feel that I have become much weaker. Hancock's hard power will naturally not weaken. On the contrary, it is still growing. The reason why she said she has become weaker is that her combat awareness has become dull. Originally in the pirate world, although Hancock's strength was stronger than in the original work, she was not a standout in Vegapunk's hands. Whether it was some of the strong people he cloned or the high-level combat mechanical intelligence he created, they all had combat power comparable to Hancock. Therefore, Hancock did not experience many life and death battles during that period, but training battles of the same level often occurred, so there was no problem of regression in combat awareness. It's just that in the world of Naruto, on the one hand, there are no Otsutsuki gods and super shadow level strongmen in this era, and Hancock's strength is almost the top. On the other hand, because of the new training system, coupled with the help of Vegapunk, Hancock's strength growth rate is almost equivalent to a triple jump. Her strength has skyrocketed, but she has not encountered any opponent who can compete with her, which naturally makes her control and combat awareness decline. For Hancock, the only thing that can be ranked with her beauty in her heart is her own strength. The Amazon lily she was born from is also a race that advocates strength. What's more, Hancock wants to help Vegapunk more, and for Vegapunk, whose science and technology have reached a certain limit, Hancock feels that in addition to her beautiful body, only her strong combat power can be of some use to Vegapunk. It is true that the two mice in front of him are not a threat at all, but in this world, Obito is already one of the top ninjas, and Hancock can barely use him to warm up. Well, go ahead, my love. Hearing Vegapunk's address as lover, Hancock's face immediately flushed, and she became excited. She lowered her head and gave Vegapunk a deep kiss. "Don't worry, dear. I will definitely be the most powerful shield by your side." Seeing Hancock leaving, Vegapunk wiped the corner of his mouth. "I always feel that the positions of men and women are reversed. Forget it. Who made me a civilized person and not very good at fighting? Who? Black Zetsu, are you dead? If you are not dead, can you help me?" Lying in a corner of the experimental base, Achihirobito looked embarrassed, covering his eyes, and asked. Under the almost crushing combat power of War Greymon, Achihirobito had to use the Kambu ability again without fully recovering his pupil power, and escaped from War Greymon's pursuit in a way that was almost like walking through walls. Fortunately, after observation, Obito discovered that War Greymon seemed to be able to teleport only in places where he could see and could not move in space under the obstruction of walls and other things, which allowed him to escape with his life. However, under the interference of War Greymon, he forced to use Kamu several times, which made his pupil power almost gone, and there was no way to escape from the base through space-time ninjutsu, so he called Black Zetsu, hoping that he could take him out. "I'm not dead, but don't even think about helping me," Black Zetsu said helplessly, and rose from the ground, but only half of it rose. The upper body looked fine, and the lower body, including the 2 legs, had disappeared without a trace. There was no way Vegapunk had already known about the existence of White Zetsu, so it was naturally impossible for him to be defenseless. He tried to force his way through the underground defense barrier, and the result was that White Zetsu's 2 legs were completely scrapped. Therefore, Black Zetsu, who was attached to White Zetsu, looked like he had no legs. Seeing the miserable look of Black Zetsu, Obito sighed helplessly. It was obvious that the other party could not take him away, or it was good enough that he did not drag him down. "I never thought that I could come to such a big ninja village as Kirigakuren Konoha village, control the Mizukage, and release the Ninetales Jinchuriki, so I could come and go freely. But now I was just going to explore an experimental base, but I ended up in this desperate situation." At this time, waves of fluctuations appeared in the space. Obito looked up with a serious expression and saw a beautiful woman wearing a cheongsam walking out of the space. Although the woman was definitely the most beautiful woman Obito had ever seen in his life, her appearance and temperament were so perfect that people could not help but be attracted by her just by looking at her, almost close to the level of illusion. But Obito still would not ignore the powerful chakra texture emanating from this famous woman. It was beyond imagination, even more terrifying than the chakra of the Ninetales, which was known as a natural disaster. Chapter 92 Warm-up begins. How is this possible? Who are you? But before Obito could speak, Black Zetsu was the first to scream out, which made Obito look surprised. He had never seen this strange black thing with such huge emotional fluctuations. What's so strange about this woman's identity? Although Hancock's chakra strength made Achihirobito feel trembling, Achihirobito didn't think that it was just the powerful chakra that made the Black Zetsu in front of him scream. Chakra does not represent absolute strength. Achihimadara's chakra is definitely not as good as the Ninetales. Can't he make the Ninetales roll on the ground with just a glance? Huh. It turned out to be you. The creation of Kaguya Otsutsuki in my body. Hancock tilted her head and said, after turning into a human form, "I really can't recognize it. You know, Vegapunk and Hancock's parallel time and space journey brought a lot of gains, including Black Zetsu who was sealed by Vegapunk. It's just that the sealed Black Zetsu was like a black ball, or a slime monster, which was completely different from the yin-yang face mode that merged with White Zetsu now, so Hancock didn't react for a while. Inside your body? Wait. What did you do to my mother? Crazy, you crazy. You actually treated my mother as a cheap thing like a tailed beast, and sealed her in your body." Black Zetsu was stunned for a moment, combined with Hancock's words, and then sensed the breath of Princess Kaguya Otsutsuki on Hancock's body, and suddenly reacted, and immediately screamed like crazy. While screaming, Black Zetsu pounced on him, and then was slapped on the head by the impatient Hancock's palm with domineering color domineering. With a plop, Black Zetsu's whole head exploded with a shrill scream. Obito, who was just shocked by Black Zetsu's performance, was stunned. What happened? This guy was too fast, right? Although Obito had guessed from Black Zetsu's strange behavior that he must have been hiding a lot of things from him, he was still a helper in the face of a powerful enemy. He didn't expect that he would just give up his life like that. However, Black Zetsu was not so easy to kill. Even the Conqueror's Haki in the pirate world had absolute lethality to special forms such as energy states, and Black Zetsu was beaten into scattered black mud dots. However, the black mud dots on the ground were barely gathered together and recondensed into Black Zetsu. On the contrary, the white Zetsu, who was the object of Black Zetsu's possession, had his head smashed to pieces, and naturally there was no way to recover. The recovered Black Zetsu calmed down all of a sudden, and no longer dared to rush forward mindlessly like before. Even if his life form was very special, if he was hit by a few more slaps of Conqueror's Haki, his self-consciousness would definitely be shattered and turned into a ball of chakra and dissipated. After a short silence, Uchiha Obito finally asked, "Who are you? You dare to invade my lover's laboratory without even knowing me. It seems that you little mice are really brave." Hancock sneered, stretched out her hand, and condensed a ball of yang-released chakra, pointed at Uchiha Obito lightly, and the ball of chakra immediately entered Uchiha Obito's body. Uchiha Obito felt that the nearly exhausted chakra in his body was quickly restored, and his pupil power was also restored by half in an instant. After a while, his eyes, which were originally dark and saw due to the forced extraction of power, had regained their vision. Even his wound, that had been cut off a piece of scalp and was bleeding continuously, had completely healed, but because he had no hair, it had now become a Mediterranean. Taking a long breath, Obito's face was very serious. This was the first time that he felt that the situation was completely beyond his control. Originally relying on his trickery and the reputation of Uchiha Madara, Uchiha Obito did not encounter any major setbacks in executing his plan, although it was not smooth sailing. This made Uchiha Obito proud, but in fact, his mentality in facing setbacks did not improve. Now he didn't know what to say. Saying that he was Uchiha Madara. In this case, there was no way to scare the other party. Taking off that layer of unfathomable tiger skin would only make the other party think of him as a clown. As for other plans such as the Moon Eye plan and the plan to collect the tailed beasts, it goes without saying. The Naruto world has always been a world where the weak are preyed on by the strong. The first requirement for others to listen to you is that you have to knock the other party down. Okay, I admit defeat this time. You can tell me what you want to do. You didn't kill us directly. You probably want me to help you do something. Obito gritted his teeth and said, and did not continue to try to enter the Camus space in front of Hancock. With the information leaked, he didn't think that the other party had no ability to deal with space-time ninjutsu. At the same time, he could think of only one reason why the other party did not kill him directly. He was quite proud of his Camus ability. Compared with ordinary space-time ninjutsu, Camus was undoubtedly much more useful. Don't think too highly of yourself. I just want to warm up. Hancock showed a disdainful expression. If you can survive from my hands, I don't mind using some little mice. After all, you gutter creatures are occasionally useful. You. Uchiha Obito was shocked and angry, but Hancock did not hesitate to start. Compared with the machine warriors in the experimental base, Uchiha Obito's strength is not that strong, but fortunately Hancock does not need to hold back at all. That is really going to beat people to death. With a push, a beam of chakra light burst out. Uchiha Obito rolled and crawled, and finally dodged it, but there was still a little chakra on his sleeves. There was a crackling sound, and Uchiha Obito was horrified to find that his sleeves had all turned into stone, and they shattered to the ground with a light wave. What kind of ability is this? Uchiha Obito looked back at the metal wall that had turned into stone after being bombarded by the beam of light and felt a little cold in his heart. Hancock's petrification ability is extremely difficult to deal with, no matter which world it is in. After the fusion of chakra ability and devil fruit ability, it is even more unsolvable. Hancock never uses this ability during daily training, because in addition to petrification, chakra will also have a certain impact force. Basically, it will turn into broken stones directly when touched, and there is no chance to remove it at all. Chapter 93 Susanoo. Damn it. There's no other way. Obito, merge with me. Black Zetsu spoke loudly, revealing his trump card. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned into a ball of black mud and merged with Obito. Originally, Obito had already merged with a large number of white Zetsu cells, which led to his own Yang-style chakra far exceeding that of ordinary people, and he could use the power of the Manjaki Sharingan endlessly. But after merging with Black Zetsu, Obito, who had become a yin-yang man, felt that his yin-style chakra had increased wildly, not only in quantity, but also in quality. This kind of power, could it be the eternal Manjaki? Obito was surprised, and thinking about what Black Zetsu and Hancock had said before, or thought flashed through his mind. The origin of this guy Black Zetsu seems to be very unusual. But this thought only flashed by, and now Obito had no time to think about Black Zetsu's flaws. All his attention was on himself, wanting to squeeze out more powerful power to fight Hancock. The Sharingan itself is an external organ stimulated by pure Yin-Tun chakra. When the Sharingan is advanced, its Yin-Tun chakra will become more pure. Similarly, when Yin-Tun chakra becomes stronger, the power of the Sharingan will naturally become stronger. This is just like the relationship between Yang-Tun chakra and the immortal body. The two complement each other. Under the stimulation of the powerful Yin-Tun chakra, Uchiha Obito felt that there was a strange power in his eyes that was about to burst out. With the explosion of chakra in his body, a layer of rib-shaped chakra defense immediately formed on his body surface. This is the ultimate secret of the Manjaki Sharingan, Susanoo. Originally, with the ability of Uchiha Obito only having one Sharingan, it was almost impossible to use Susanoo, although there were examples of Uchiha Shisu opening Susanoo with one eye, and even Uchiha Madara opening Susanoo without an eye. But Uchiha Shisu at least had both eyes when he opened the Manjaki. He must have tried Susanoo. After having experience, he could barely open it with only one eye left. Uchiha Madara is even more needless to say. He was once a strong man who gave birth to the Samurai. It was only normal for him to open Susanoo without eyes. And Uchiha Obito only had a Manjaki Sharingan from the beginning. He had never used the power of Susanoo. Naturally, even if he awakened the Manjaki, he could not use that kind of divine power. But now, under the powerful Yin chakra, Uchiha Obito can almost feel the mysterious power in his Manjaki being completely stimulated. The Susanoo in the rib stage is even just the beginning. As the boiling chakra in Uchiha Obito's body surged out, the Susanoo, which was originally just a rib shape, quickly rose and grew. With a rumbling sound, it smashed the ceiling of the experimental base. The pure chakra ribs grew muscles to form a body, and finally grew armor, turning into a giant tens of meters tall. Hancock stood at the foot of Susanoo, and kept looking at Uchiha Obito quietly. The expression on his face was not the slightest fear, but a bit of excitement. Looks like it's time to get serious. Well, I won't use chakra and devil fruit abilities for now, and try the power of this chakra giant. Come to think of it, since I left the pirate world, I haven't fought against creatures like giants for a long time. As she spoke, a hint of bellicosity appeared on Hancock's delicate and exquisite face. She didn't use any chakra, but simply clenched her fists. The dark armament domineering, and the domineering with a hint of black lightning, were simultaneously wrapped around her fists. So strong, so strong. Is this the strongest power of the Uchiha clan? I should thank you. Being able to force Black Zetsu to this point, I really feel the power of the Uchiha clan's divine power. As a thank you, I'll show you. Stop talking nonsense in front of me. Hancock was originally ready to wait for Uchiha Obito to make a move, but unexpectedly, because of the sudden increase in strength, Obito committed the common problem of the Uchiha clan, laughing wildly while explaining. Hancock, who was a little impatient, punched out without hesitation. With a loud bang, without using any chakra blessing, just the physical strength of Hancock's body, the air was compressed into an air column, and a beam of light was directly blasted out, hitting Susanoo's head. The sound of crackling was endless, and Uchiha Obito immediately closed his mouth, almost overdrawing his Manjaki Sharingan. The yin-touch chakra power that he felt was almost endless was consumed by 10% in an instant. Susanoo began to break under pure physical violence, and then recovered again under the powerful chakra he input. The repeated destruction and recovery made Obito understand what it felt like to have a chakra drop off a cliff, and also made his main Jiki Sharingan, which had just recovered its brightness, immediately increase its myopia by more than 100 degrees. Damn, is this woman a monster? Obito couldn't help but roared. The pure physical strength was so strong that it could shatter Susanoo just from a distance. This was completely beyond Obito's imagination. Fortunately, after Obito and Black Zetsu merged, not only did the amount of Yinton chakra increase significantly, but his recovery ability was also extremely strong. Originally, a layer of chakra was consumed in one blow, but it was recovered in just a few breaths. You didn't get knocked down by one blow? You're really tough. A smile appeared on Hancock's face. It felt like a naughty child of 7 or 8 years old holding a straight branch in his hand, and a cauliflower field appeared in front of him. He couldn't help but be eager to try. However, after Uchiha Obito took a punch, he reacted and no longer dared to rely on Susanoo to fight Hancock. Instead, his whole body turned into a phantom and disappeared into the void. Although Uchiha Obito estimated that Hancock should also have time-space ninjutsu, otherwise, it would be impossible for him to chase him so carelessly, but for so many years, what he was best at was actually Kamu. Excluding this almost bug-like ability, Obito's strength was at most an ordinary cage-level floor. Therefore, Obito, who has now figured it out, will not give up his greatest advantage, even if he knows that his opponent has the ability to restrain him. Naive, you want to escape from the palm of my hand with just a space bubble you carry with you? Chapter 94, Wooden Man Technique, Powerful Susanoo. Although Hancock has decided not to use chakra and the power of the devil fruit, that is only in battle. Seeing that Uchiha Obito seemed to want to escape without a fight, she naturally activated her own ability without hesitation. She also turned into a shadow and disappeared in the space. Finally escaped back. Returning to the Kamu space, Uchiha Obito breathed a sigh of relief, but at this time, Black Zetsu, who had merged with Uchiha Obito, immediately spoke. Now is not the time to relax. The farther the better. If the other party really has the power of my mother, even if it is only a small part, it should not be difficult for him to enter this space. Uchiha Obito frowned. Black Zetsu, after this incident, you have to give me an explanation. Black Zetsu snorted and did not respond to Uchiha Obito's stubbornness. However, at this moment, there was a clear sound of crackling in the surrounding space, and the faces of Uchiha Obito and Black Zetsu changed drastically at the same time. Countless cracks appeared in the void of the entire Shenwei space, and the cracks revealed a bizarre scene. At this moment, a pair of flawless jade hands reached in and shook the space wall gently, shattering it. In the brilliant light flowing out of the broken space, Hancock walked in with a calm face. The strange light draped over her body, blending with her slightly arrogant expression, for a moment, giving people a noble feeling like a goddess. At least Black Zetsu was already shocked by it. As an incomplete derivative life created by Kaguya Otsutsuki, he had an instinctive reverence for Kaguya Otsutsuki, and Hancock, as Kaguya Otsutsuki's Jinkriki, naturally had a great shock to him. But after a moment, Black Zetsu had already reacted. Damn it. Don't use mother's chakra to suppress me. I have no interest in suppressing this black thing of yours. Hancock raised her head and shook her hair. It's obvious that you are ashamed of yourself after seeing my appearance and strength. Black Zetsu gritted his teeth. He was just a ball of chakra, and even his race was different. It was really impossible to tell whether he was beautiful or ugly. How could he be ashamed? It was obvious that he was using mother's chakra to suppress himself, but this woman dared to say such a thing. In fact, with the symbiosis during this period of time, especially with Vegapunk's continuous research and improvement of the seal, a small part of the chakra on Kaguya Otsutsuki's body has been permanently transformed into Hancock's own chakra. Therefore, Hancock did not lie. She did not use Kaguya Otsutsuki's power at all, but now her power also has the breath of Kaguya Otsutsuki. While Black Zetsu and Hancock were talking, Uchiha Obito was constantly thinking about ways to escape. He could even break through his own Kamu space. Now Obito had completely given up the idea of counterattack. But even if Obito now recognized the reality, he couldn't think of any good way to escape, and Hancock didn't want to talk anymore. And you little rat, you've been trapped in the rat hole. Do you still want to escape? As soon as the voice fell, Hancock's domineering aura burst out, and Uchiha face suddenly turned pale. But being able to implement the plan of the Moon Eye, Uchiha himself was a madman. The oppression of the conqueror's haki aroused his own stubbornness and extreme side. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind to fight to the death. He shouted, "Afei, Black Zetsu, help me." With Obito's voice, a white figure appeared underground. It was Afei, the most powerful and special of all the white Zetsu. It turned out that he had been hiding in Uchiha Camu space. Afei directly wrapped around Uchiha body and formed a set of black and white combat uniforms with Black Zetsu. The Yang release chakra, which was not inferior to Black Zetsu, was also input into Uchiha body. Would release, Woodman technique, power Susanoo. With the joint efforts of Black Zetsu, Afei, and Uchiha, a nearly 100-meter tall wooden man appeared in the narrow Camu space, almost giving people the feeling of standing tall, and the 100-meter tall wooden man had a layer of armor formed by Susanoo. As the disciple of Uchiha Madara, Uchiha is naturally familiar with the powerful Susanoo, and has a deep understanding of Senju Hashirama's wood release. After getting the help of Afei and Black Zetsu, the powerful Susanoo GI technique he is performing now is already his limit. With this kind of strength, even ordinary tailed beasts or even the 8-tailed beasts can be easily defeated. At this time, there are few people in the entire ninja world who can resist. Standing on the huge Susanoo GI, feeling this powerful force, Uchiha immediately felt that he was good again. Don't you want to see my strength? This is the combination of yin and yang release, the power of all things. Come on, let's see who is the real rat this time. As he spoke, the huge wooden man pulled out a wooden spear, wrapped it with the chakra of Susanoo, and smashed it directly at Hancock. I will do as you wish. Hancock sneered. Let me tell you, a mouse is always just a mouse. Hancock's fist wrapped in the domineering color, and armed color domineering, swung out again, and the huge wooden man stabbed out with a spear, but had to stop when it was about to collide with Hancock's fist. How could it be? Seeing that the tip of the wooden man's spear was a few centimeters away from Hancock's fist, unable to move forward, black lightning burst out, as if forming some kind of invisible stance, blocking Obito's attack. The huge spear that was more than 100 meters long and several meters thick formed a huge contrast with Hancock's slender and soft arms even with the domineering color. Is your strength just like this? This is not in line with your mouth. Hancock sneered and exerted force again. There was a continuous sound of crackling, and Hancock's fist directly crushed the entire spear into pieces. Damn it, don't underestimate my power. Uchiha gritted his teeth and squeezed out chakra again, forcing the wooden man to grow a circle. Then the wooden man raised a long sword formed by chakra and slashed at Hancock. Hancock was still waving his fist slowly, and the chakra sword slashed down, almost splitting the ground in the Camu space in half. However, Hancock floated in the air, and her soft jade hands were coated with a layer of black metallic color, tightly grasping the huge chakra sword. This is impossible. Obito opened his mouth wide. He didn't think that Susanoo would definitely not be blocked by others, but the shocking scene of being pinched directly by someone's hand still made Obito feel doubtful about his life. Chapter 95, Capture Alive. Rumbling sounds continued to explode in the desert near the experimental base. The violent storm and terrifying shockwave set off a huge sandstorm, which made Vegapunk, who was using the projection device to watch the battle outside, a little distressed. The anti-interference ability of the external observation device should be adjusted. Isn't it possible to see nothing? After a period of fighting, the Camu space was almost completely destroyed by the battle between Hancock and Uchiha. Just after the two sides jumped out of the Camu space, they appeared in the desert wasteland outside and continued to fight. Although there was no way to see the battle outside, Vegapunk was not worried about Hancock at all. After obtaining part of Kaguya Otsutsuki's chakra, Hancock occupied a very high position in the chakra system. Even if she did not use chakra to fight, she had absolute suppression over most ordinary ninjas. Specifically, most ninjutsu have almost no lethality to Hancock. She is completely immune to illusions below the level of the Rinnegan. Offensive ninjutsu without the characteristics of time, space and immortal arts is basically ineffective. Her own attacks have the characteristic of breaking through weaknesses in the defense formed by ninjutsu. This is the crushing of ordinary chakra by the chakra of the bloodline network level, which is also the reason why ordinary ninjas have no ability to resist when facing the Otsutsuki clan. After all, when your attack hits the opponent and not only does not break the defense, but also adds blood, then no matter how big the difference in combat awareness between the two sides is, there will be no chance of winning. In short, ninjas who simply follow the chakra system are almost completely restrained by the high-level Otsutsuki clan, not to mention that Hancock's combat awareness is much stronger than that of Otsutsuki Kaguya. Even if Otsutsuki Kaguya from the final decisive battle was pulled over, Vegapunk would be more optimistic about Hancock's victory, not to mention a mere Uchiha Obito. If Hancock had not warmed up, Obito would have been killed in one move, if he had only relied on domineering and physical combat. In the storm, Hancock punched out again, and her tiny fist directly broke one leg of the huge armored wooden man. This time, Uchiha Obito, whose chakra was almost exhausted, finally couldn't control the wooden man's regeneration, and the whole wooden man fell to one side. "Is that all?" Hancock said with a bit of boredom, and then smashed the other leg of the wooden man with another punch. "You can't even let me warm up. Damn, what kind of monster are you?" Uchiha Obito's eyes flowed with a faint blood, and the whole main Gekio was covered with bloodshot like cracks, almost giving people a dry feeling. In fact, it was almost the same. The continuous use of the Kamu main Gekio had exhausted Uchiha Obito's eyes. If it weren't for the pure Yintun and Yangtun chakra, provided by Black Zetsu and Afei, with his way of using the main Gekio, even 10 main Gekio would be almost blind. But even so, Obito's Kamu main Geki was only an ordinary main Geki after all, and it could not reach the level of the Eternal Eye. The huge loss caused by constant recovery and use still made this eye almost completely scrapped. As Hancock dismantled the huge wooden man in Susanoo armor bit by bit, Obito, who was at his wit's end, finally fell off the huge wooden man and fell to the ground. At this moment, the mask on Obito's face had long been broken into pieces, revealing his original face. Half of his face, which was not handsome to begin with, was shaved into a bald spot, making him look ugly and embarrassed. Failed. Uchiha Obito muttered, lying on the desert like a deflated ball. "It's really ridiculous. What an ambitious moon-eye plan. In the end it ended up in such a clownish way. But this is not bad. At least I can go to the Pure Land to Sealin." "What are you talking about?" Hancock said impatiently, and grabbed the two struggling black and white Zetsu, and threw them into the space of Cheyenne's Himin. Then he flicked his finger, and the air bullet stunned Uchiha Obito. When Hancock came back, he casually opened the space, and Uchiha Obito, Black Zetsu, and Afei, the three trophies, appeared in front of Vegapunk. "Are these guys useful to you?" "I think the abilities of these three people are quite interesting." "Yes, they are quite interesting," Vegapunk said with a smile. In fact, whether it was the Kamui or the Black Zetsu and the White Zetsu, Vegapunk had already obtained them from another world, so there was little point in studying them. However, since Hancock kindly sent him a few spoils of war, he naturally wouldn't say anything. When Uchiha Obito woke up, he found that his eyes, which were almost dark, had regained their brightness. But he didn't feel happy at all, not only because his hands and feet were completely tied up, and his chakra was sealed. He also felt that there was no pupil power in his eye, just an ordinary eye, not even a Sharingan, let alone a main Geki. Even if his Kamu Sharingan was dry and shriveled, and even his eyes could no longer function normally, he still had the foundation of main Geki. As long as there was enough pure and powerful Yin-Tun and Yang-Tun chakra to slowly replenish and nourish it, it could still restore its original power. But if it was replaced with an ordinary eye, it would really be just an eye. However, Uchiha Obito laughed at himself again. It was good enough to save his life. Why should he think so much? "You woke up, Uchiha Obito." At this moment, Uchiha Obito heard a clear voice, and then a young man with blonde hair, as handsome as a prince in a fairy tale, walked out. "Are you Vegapunk?" Uchiha Obito was stunned for a moment and asked. He did know some information about Vegapunk. Many people said that his appearance was as handsome as a god, but obviously, Uchiha Obito would not care about such things at that time. But at least he left an impression in his heart. Therefore, Seeing such a handsome young man in front of him, and thinking about his purpose this time, it was normal for him to guess the identity of Vegapunk in front of him. Yes, it's indeed me. Vegapunk nodded, reached out and pressed the bed in the laboratory, and untied the restraints on Obito. If you are interested, let's talk. When the restraints were untied, Obito moved his hands and feet slightly. A look of surprise appeared on his face. The white Zetsu, that originally occupied almost half of his body, had disappeared without a trace, and he has now returned to his normal appearance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Conversation. Although without that part of White Zetsu's body, Uchiha Obito could no longer use would release, nor did he have the powerful yang release chakra, but he still felt a sense of complete relief. After all, how could a pieced together body compare to his original body? After being transformed by Uchiha Madara and White Zetsu, even though he became stronger, that strange feeling of alienation never disappeared from Obito's mind. Of course, now without the ability of wood release and the Sharingan, Uchiha Obito's strength is at best an elite jonin, and even belongs to the kind of mediocre stuff. Therefore, even if all the constraints are untied, he does not act rashly. He did not object to Vegapunk's suggestion to chat, but sat quietly on a chair next to him. Where is that lady? Isn't she here? Are you talking about Hancock? She is studying Black Zetsu. The last Black Zetsu was accidentally killed by her research, so this time she wants to better observe how Black Zetsu was born. Studying Black Zetsu? Exclamation mark. Uchiha Obito felt goosebumps all over his body. How could he study that kind of thing? And could he lose it after studying it? No, the key point is, isn't there only one Black Zetsu? What does the previous Black Zetsu mean? I can see that you have a lot of questions. Vegapunk said calmly to Uchiha Obito, who was full of doubts. Uchiha Obito pursed his lips, always feeling that the other party's unfathomable attitude made him uncomfortable. In fact, Vegapunk was just talking to Uchiha Obito in a normal manner, but this time the fiasco made Uchiha Obito sensitive. He always felt that the other party had a condescending attitude like himself in the past, so he felt uncomfortable. I do have a lot of questions, but do they still make sense now? Uchiha Obito said calmly, with a look of lying down and letting things go. After losing the main Jiki Kambuis and the help of Black Zetsu and Afei, the so-called Moon project had long become a fantasy. Uchiha Obito even had the idea of suicidal thoughts, and naturally he didn't care much about many problems. Let things go down. Vegapunk shook his head. If that's the case, then I won't keep you. Do whatever you want to do. Uchiha Obito was slightly stunned. He really didn't expect the other party to have such an attitude. For a while, he couldn't say anything. Seeing that Vegapunk didn't care about him at all, Uchiha Obito felt a little angry in his heart. He thought that, since Uchiha Obito awakened the main Jiki Sharingan, when had he ever been treated like this? Whether it was Nagato who possessed the God's Eye, or his teacher, the Hokage of Konoha, or the Mizukage of the Mist Village, when they saw him, they were either extremely wary, or treated him as a formidable enemy. But now, he was being let go like an ant by the other party, which naturally hurt Obito's self-esteem deeply. Don't you want to know why I came to look for you? Uchiha Obito was silent for a moment, and finally couldn't help but speak, but Vegapunk shook his head. Sorry, I already knew it. As he spoke, Vegapunk casually pointed to a helmet beside him. That is a memory reader. As long as you wear it on your head, you can read all the memories of a person, since birth intact within half an hour, and you have been unconscious for 3 hours. So you think there is something I don't know? Is it your Moon plan? Or was your original purpose of coming here actually to subdue me? Or do you want to know how White Zetsu was created? How did you pretend to be Uchiha Madara to deceive others? How did you control the Mist Village to turn it into a bloody mist? How did you kill your teacher and mistress? How did you deceive Nagato and his gang of Akatsuki guys? Obito's face was as ugly as if he had eaten feces. He felt that he was now like a skinned frog displayed in front of his opponent. Driven by emotions such as shame, anger, and hatred, he couldn't help but yelled, "Enough. Why didn't you do all this yourself? At most, you just put on a whirlpool mask. Don't you even want to admit what you did?" Vegapunk crossed his arms and looked at Uchiha, saying sarcastically, "Or do you think that what you did is actually problematic? The Moon Eye project is a piece of shit? Nonsense. Everything I did was for true peace. The Moon Eye project is the path to true peace." Obito, who seemed to be furious, suddenly jumped up and roared. If Uchiha really had no confusion at all, and really felt that the Moon Eye project was the best destination, then he would not have been whitewashed in the end. In the entire Naruto world, only Uchiha is the kind of guy who not only has a strange way of thinking, but also does not turn back, even if he hits a wall. Uchiha is actually a little bit worse. He must have had a lot of confusion and hesitation about the Moon Eye project. There is a word called investment cost. After doing so many things, Uchiha has no way to turn back. He can only stick to the so-called Moon Eye plan until he succeeds or is defeated. If he insists on the Moon Eye plan, he can say that his previous actions were just for necessary sacrifices. But once he gives up the Moon Eye plan, then the guilt brought by his actions will no longer have an excuse to shirk, and it will crush the current Uchiha in an instant. His current performance also illustrates this point. If he is really confident in the Moon Eye plan, he will not have such a nearly explosive performance. If he just keeps silent or sneers twice, then he is really hopeless. It's up to you. I don't know your brain circuit anyway, Vegapunk said with a face of right, and reached out to take out a vortex mask. Are you pretending to be Uchiha with this thing? What do you want to do? Looking at the orange mask, that is exactly the same as the mask he wore at the beginning, Uchiha was slightly startled. The other party would not also want to pretend to be Uchiha and control the Akatsuki organization. Vegapunk chuckled. It seems that you have guessed my thoughts a little bit. Don't dream. Since you know my memory, you should know what price you have to pay to transplant the Mangekyou Sharingan. Uchiha identity is not so easy to impersonate. Chapter 97 Experiment. Uchiha said that Vegapunk would never be able to impersonate Uchiha on his behalf, but in fact, he was quite uneasy in his heart. The information during this period of time has given Uchiha a deep understanding of Vegapunk's technological capabilities. The other party is not an ordinary person. His research on science has penetrated into many unimaginable fields such as blood, limit and chakra fusion. If there is someone who can research and fuse his Mangekyou Sharingan without loss, and it will not bring too much burden, then Vegapunk in front of him may be the only candidate. The other party can even develop White Zetsu and would release, and his inferior sage body obviously can't stop him. In addition, his eyes fell into his hands. In other words, the other party can completely become a strong man with the same abilities as himself through transplantation. With the same abilities and even the same memories, the other party can completely learn from himself to impersonate Uchiha and join the Akatsuki organization. The more Uchiha thought about it, the more unwilling he became. However, Vegapunk had already waved his hand. Whether I can do it or not, you can go and see for yourself later. Now, are you not going to leave? Uchiha clenched his fists, then unclenched them. Although he was extremely unwilling, he didn't think he could fight against Vegapunk in his current state. What's more, as a loser, it was good enough for him to save his life. It seemed that he could not stop the other party from doing anything. Why did you let me go? Aren't you afraid that I will leak your plan? Leak it? Leak it to whom? To those freaks in Akatsuki? Do you think they care about the person under the mask, whether he is a cat or a dog? Besides, who are you now? What qualifications do you have to know such a top secret? How many people believe what you say? Opening his mouth, Uchiha sat down dejectedly. Without the white Zetsu cells and the Mangekyou Sharingan, Uchiha was only an elite jonin. This strength might be considered good in the ninja world, but facing those freaks in Akatsuki, it was obviously not convincing at all. Maybe he would be killed by the Akatsuki members who thought he was too long-winded just after he said a few words. If that happened, his death would be too unfair. So what did you want to do after you assumed my identity? Are you going to promote the Moon Eye plan? Or are you eyeing those tailed beasts? After pondering for a moment again, Obito finally asked. Vegapunk smiled. What? Don't you look like you don't care about anything? Seeing that Obito's face was blushing, and he seemed to be angry again, Vegapunk waved his hand and put down the mask in his hand. Don't worry, I actually have no interest in joining the Akatsuki organization. That kind of thing is just a demotion for me. Through digging into your memory, I also know your deepest thoughts. The Moon Eye plan is fake. The real purpose is to use the Moon Eye to create a world with your former crush and escape the cruel reality. But what if I give you a chance to make up for the past and redeem all regrets? What? Uchiha Obito was shocked, and his eyes widened. As long as you cooperate with me to do a small experiment. Uchiha Obito has never been considered a smart person since he was a child. Even though his intelligence has improved after he turned evil, he actually relied more on information suppression and his own mysterious and powerful ninjutsu. He is not a truly wise ninja. After a conversation with Vegapunk, Uchiha Obito not only did not find out the details of Vegapunk, but was attracted by Vegapunk's experiment and wanted to become Vegapunk's experimental subject. Yes, he wants to become the main experimental subject of Vegapunk's parallel world crossing. Although the last parallel world crossing was very successful, it was actually caused by the riot of the Dragon Vein unintentionally, and it cannot be regarded as a real success of the experiment. After collecting a lot of data, Vegapunk is finally ready to start autonomous crossing, but before that, he must conduct some experiments to make sure that it is completely safe before conducting autonomous crossing. According to Vegapunk's calculations, the best way to keep oneself safe during the journey is to have the ability of space-time. Although he has developed the technology of space-time bubbles, the space-time bubbles opened by machines are far less convenient and safe than the Camu space. The most important thing is that the small space developed by machines is both rigid and cannot be truly controlled by people. If there is something wrong with the machine, it will really be game over. Of course, in addition to Uchiha Obito, he actually has 2 complete Camu Sharingan from another world. If cloning technology is used, it can also create ninjas who use Camu, but unless he is willing to invest a lot of resources and time, the clones are far inferior to the original body in terms of potential and ability. As for using clones directly to open Camu eyes in batches. In fact, the real problem is not technology, but more resources. With Vegapunk's current technology, it would be no problem to create a Kaguya Rotsutsuki. However, if he wants the clone to exert the combat power of Kaguya Rotsutsuki, he must fill it with Kaguya Rotsutsuki's level of chakra. According to Vegapunk's estimation, it would be enough to collect all the chakra in the ninja world. Obviously, this is impossible. Unless Vegapunk can completely crack the mystery of converting various energies into chakra. Otherwise cloning the Otsutsuki army will always be a false proposition. But if the mystery of converting energy into chakra is really cracked, Vegapunk will not need any Otsutsuki army. He can easily defeat any opponent by directly relying on the astronomical level of energy accumulation. It's not that Vegapunk can't create the special chakra needed to open the main Juki Sharingan, but the resources consumed will make Vegapunk feel a little distressed. Unless he has to, Vegapunk will never waste a lot of resources to create these main Jukis. Instead, he has spatial abilities. Apart from the Camu Eye in his hand, the only one left is Hancock, the current Jinkriki of Kaguya Otsutsuki. Vegapunk didn't want Hancock to conduct this kind of experiment. Even if he was confident in his own technology, Vegapunk didn't dare to guarantee that his first experiment would be 100% successful. In this case, Uchiha Obito, the scapegoat, happened to appear in front of him, saving him the resources to make clones. As for how to convince him, anyway, Uchiha Obito didn't know much about the parallel world, so Vegapunk could be said to be conducting an experiment to go back to the past. In order to save the white moonlight in his heart, Rin Nohara, Uchiha Obito almost cried and begged Vegapunk to let him be the #1 experimental subject. Chapter 98 Preparing to go to Konoha. For the experiment of traveling through parallel worlds, Vegapunk is only in the preparation stage for the time being, and it will take at least another 1 or 2 years to fully implement it. After Vegapunk showed him the tangible evidence of traveling through the world, Uchiha Obito became a loyal subordinate of Vegapunk. In order to change the tragedy of the past, Vegapunk installed a small number of nanomachines inside his brain, which can receive various signals collected by his brain, as a means of controlling him, and Uchiha Obito also readily accepted this. In this way, Vegapunk can read everything that Uchiha Obito sees and senses at will, and can also directly contact Uchiha Obito, and even explode Uchiha Obito's brain under extreme conditions. Of course, Uchiha Obito doesn't care much about this, just like he accepted Uchiha Madara's restraint on his heart at the beginning, but the restraint of his heart has been eliminated when Vegapunk cut off those white Zetsu and restored him to his original state. But Vegapunk's nanomachines are not so easy to eliminate. There is one thing that Vegapunk has never told Uchiha Obito. The nanomachines are not lurking in his brain, but replacing part of his brain. In other words, the nanomachines have replaced part of his brain tissue by cannibalization. Even if Uchiha Obito has a way to eliminate the nanomachines, he will at least end up in a vegetative state. If he is unlucky, he will just die of a cold. There are many wonderful ninjutsu in the ninja system, not to mention the big move of Izanagi. In addition, Uchiha Obito's own brain circuits are not very normal, and he is easily deceived. Naturally, Vegapunk has to be on guard. If Uchiha Obito really uses the ninjutsu of Izanagi to destroy the nanomachines, he will instantly die, or become a vegetative state due to the lack of brain function. However, in other aspects, Vegapunk did not treat Uchiha Obito badly. The white Zetsu of Fei was made into materials, which directly modified Uchiha Obito's bloodline constitution, allowing him to have wood-release bloodline limit and a degraded version of the Sage body. The original Kami Sharingan was also returned to him, and the original pupil power was restored. Vegapunk even gave him a Sage seal directly, but due to insufficient resources, it was also a degraded version, basically an extension of Orochimaru's research on the seal. There is no hope for a permanent Sage mode, but it is not a problem to spend a few seconds preparing in battle and enter the Sage mode for half an hour. In the past, because Uchiha Obito's body was just pieced together, he could only exert 80% of the 10 level combat power. Of course, the level of wood release and Kamu Manger Ki itself is high enough. Although it cannot be integrated into the power of all things, it also complements the shortcomings of both sides. Therefore, even with 80% combat power, Uchiha Obito is definitely not weak. But now that he has completely mastered all his powers and has the Sage mode, Uchiha Obito is undoubtedly much stronger than before, even comparable to Uzumaki Nagato. If he can find his other Manger Ki, his strength may be close to that of a Super Shadow level ninja. After all, the two Kami's, one attacking and one defending, are really a bit abnormal. With the Sage mode and the degraded Sage body, they are fully capable of exerting the kind of power that Kakashi showed in the last battle of the original work. So, you want me to find my Manger Ki Sharingan? Uchiha Obito spoke calmly and gently. Since he knew that he might be able to redeem his past regrets, his personality has changed again. He is neither as erratic as a teenager nor as radical as an adult. Instead, he has a more calm feeling. However, Vegapunk can feel that behind Uchiha Obito's calmness is his firmness and stubbornness, and his determination to die if he fails. To some extent, he was not completely free from the evil, but his obsession was deeper, and no longer manifested. How is it? Is there a problem? Vegapunk looked at Uchiha Obito and asked. No problem. Uchiha Obito shook his head, but if this happens, my information will be easily leaked, right? After all, the Uchiha clan has so many Sharingan, and they chose to trouble Kakashi, the most difficult one. It is easy to arouse suspicion from others. Although Kakashi's strength was dragged down by the Sharingan, now that he is 16 or 17 years old, he is definitely an elite Jonin, much stronger than most 3 Magatama Uchiha. However, he only has one Sharingan. In comparison, attacking those ordinary 3 Magatama Sharingan ninjas will undoubtedly gain more and take less risks. If there is no special situation, he is almost impossible to be targeted for plundering Sharingan. This is not the case after the Uchiha clan was exterminated. There are only a few Sharingan left in the open. If Obito attacks, it is indeed easy to be suspected. It's okay. Once you've subdued him, you can give him a Sharingan. Vegapunk said with a nonchalant expression. I've already left some tricks on him. It's very easy to subdue him, or erase his memory afterwards. You just need to do what I say. Okay, I understand. Uchiha Obito nodded helplessly. I'll get my Sharingan back. For such a long time, Uchiha Obito has not taken back Kakashi's Sharingan. Of course, there is a certain fear of being suspected. More likely, it is the result of the bond with Kakashi and the escapist mentality of not knowing how to face Kakashi. But this mentality is actually very fragile. As long as Obito is given a little pressure or motivation, and the balance in his heart is slightly tilted, he will naturally take back his main Juki Sharingan. Very good, let's go together, when the time comes. I also want to see what the Konoha ninja village is like now. Vegapunk waved his hand, and said with a smile on his face. Uchiha Obito frowned immediately. With your identity, going to Konoha village, isn't it too risky? Uchiha Obito now values Vegapunk's life very much. After all, it is related to whether he can redeem all regrets and stop all tragedies in time travel research. Before Vegapunk started the time travel experiment, Uchiha Obito wished he could stay in the experimental base forever to do research. Chapter 99 Conversation in the Carriage. On the official road to the Land of Fire, a luxurious carriage was traveling on the avenue. Don't worry, with my status, I really don't believe that the third Hokage of Konoha Ninja Village has the courage to attack me. Wearing gorgeous clothes, lying diagonally in the carriage, with her head resting on Hancock's plump and soft thighs, Vegapunk said confidently. It doesn't matter, even if that Konoha Ninja Village, the third Hokage has bad intentions, I will protect you. Compared with Vegapunk, Hancock is even more confident. She feels that her current strength is invincible even in the pirate world, not to mention the current serious fault, and the six-path strongman has not appeared in the Naruto world. Uchiha Obito, who was sitting outside the carriage and driving the carriage, rolled his eyes. Hancock's strength, even if it is just the tip of the iceberg, is enough to destroy the entire Konoha. Let her protect Vegapunk in the hands of the third Hokage. It sounds like a lion protecting a mastiff in front of a kitten. Are you sure this is not an exaggeration? And how could he forget that Vegapunk was the heir of the Sea Country, the special envoy of the Water Country and the Wind Country, etc. These identities were not very intimidating to the barefoot rebels who were not afraid of wearing shoes. For those big ninja villages, they dared not offend such a noble. Well, actually, it's possible. I remember that there seemed to be a guy named Danzo in Konoha village. He was ruthless and bold. Even if he knew the identity of Vegapunk, he might do something. Obito tilted his head and thought secretly. With the increasing influence of Vegapunk on overseas and the Wind Country, a lot of information could not be covered up, even if he wanted to, not to mention that with Vegapunk's personality, he would not cover up these things. In fact, if his age was not very confusing, his information should have been placed on the desks of the major ninja villages as early as when the Sea Village was established. And with Vegapunk's ability, even if the leaders of those ninja villages only knew a little bit, I'm afraid they would be afraid and covetous of this genius. Inexplicably, Obito even hoped that Konohagakure would have some disputes with Vegapunk, so that there would be something interesting to watch. After all, since he had hit the same wall, Obito naturally hoped that others would hit it as well. Even in his current state, Obito still had this kind of gloating taste. In the carriage, besides Vegapunk and Hancock, there was also a woman in blue with long brown hair. Although she was still young, she was already full of mature charm at this moment. Her plump body drew attractive curves, and the faint charm on her face made her look like a queen to anyone. However, the expression on the face of the beauty in front of him was a little cautious. She was doing the work of serving others. While massaging Vegapunk's feet, she said with some concern. The Konoha village may not do anything openly, but they may not be so honest in secret. Isn't that more interesting, Meditarumi? When those guys hit a wall, they will naturally be honest. What's more, they will do some small tricks in secret. We ourselves are not honest people, right? Not to mention that our target this time is Kakashi's main Juki Sharingan. Even if the next step of the plan, our target itself is the Far Country. Hearing this, Meditarumi was slightly stunned, but Lord Vegapunk, can't we just hand over the matter of seizing the Sharingan to the cart driver outside? As for the fire country, I think we can completely occupy it with the power of our current sea country, right? That's not necessarily true. Vegapunk smiled slightly. Don't treat other countries as fools. As far as I know, the land of earth, the land of lightning, and the land of fire seem to have some tacit understanding with each other. The reason why these countries feel that they have a tacit understanding with each other is that according to Vegapunk's understanding, the land of fire and the land of lightning have signed a peace agreement with each other, and Hyuga Hisashi has not died. Obviously, this time, the Cloud Ninja Village did not make any small moves when signing the agreement. To other people in the ninja world, this seems to be a very normal thing. Only Vegapunk, who really understands the history of the original work, knows that this must be because the growth of the sea country and the wind country has caused the Cloud Ninja Village to change its strategy. The Cloud Ninja Village, which should have taken the opportunity to weaken Konoha Village, or at least severely hit Konoha Village, is probably more inclined to unite with Konoha Village this time, to fight against the increasingly powerful Sea Ninja Village. As a huge peninsula country, the Land of Lightning can be said to be the country that attaches the most importance to the ocean besides the sea country. Whether it is shipbuilding, fishery development or maritime trade, they are all key projects of the Land of Lightning. However, over the years, with the unification, development and growth of the Sea Nation Alliance, the power of the Lightning Nation on the sea has been suppressed and reduced, and some small islands originally controlled by the Sea Nation have been annexed by the Sea Nation. Most importantly, the interruption of the maritime trade route and the dumping of the Sea Nation on the Lightning Nation after the development of productivity and technology have caused the entire Lightning Nation's economy to be in a state of sluggishness. The economic slump of the Lightning Nation has naturally affected the Cloud Ninja Village. The Cloud Ninja Village may not know much about this kind of economic problem, but the Lightning Nation is at least a big country, and its technology and people's wisdom have developed to a certain extent. Those high-level officials have their own think tanks, and they are obviously more aware of the reasons for their country's predicament. With the influence of the Lightning Nation, coupled with the gradual increase in the strength of the Sea Ninja Village, it is obvious that it has also caused the Cloud Ninja to be uneasy, and it is natural for them to seek Konoha to join forces. In fact, this situation not only happened to the Kumogakure in the Land of Lightning, but also the Land of Fire and the Hidden Leaf Village, the Land of Earth and the Rock Village. It can be said that, although the three countries have not yet truly united, they have already formed a certain tacit understanding. The three countries have united. That is indeed very troublesome. Mediterumi frowned, but she still had confidence in the current sea village. After the ninja village and the country were completely merged and became a unique violent institution of the country, the sea village also received military funding from the entire Sea Country Alliance. With enough money and resources, Vegapunk's technology can be fully transformed into combat power. Now the entire sea village can easily pull out thousands of strong men at the original Jonin level. Thousands of Jonins, plus 20,000 to 30,000 Chunin level cannon fodder, in Mediterumi's mind, can almost match the ninjas of the entire continent. Chapter 100 Discussions in Konohagakure. Vegapunk saw the confidence of Mediterumi, and although he was a little dissatisfied in his heart, he didn't say anything. If it was a regular battle between ninjas, the current sea village could indeed crush the other three major ninja villages. Even the sand village, which started late, could at least beat the two major ninja villages in regular combat power. But in addition to regular battles, there are also many top-level battles between ninjas. Although with the help of Vegapunk, the Mist Village also has many top-level strongmen, but those who use animal abilities to strengthen their abilities are monotonous after all, and they are not difficult to deal with in a real fight. At that time, Vegapunk's technology had not really developed, and his understanding of chakra was still vague. He had not developed a big killer like Yi Kang's light escape, so he mostly took the simple and unpretentious route of physical strengthening. If a fight really broke out, Vegapunk was not so optimistic about the sea village. Not to mention other things, if Konoha really went crazy and used the impure world reincarnation technique, the sea village would definitely not be able to withstand it. However, unless Konoha is forced to the end of its rope, it is estimated that it will not do such a thing. In conventional battles, the strength of the sea village can definitely crush the three major ninja villages. If the Sand Village joins forces, there may be hope of completely dividing the three countries and ninja villages. And if Vegapunk is willing to intervene, it is not just hope and possibility, but an absolute thing. But sir, if the three ninja villages have the intention to unite, then won't it be more dangerous for you to go to Konoha village this time? Terumi Meri said with some concern. Before Vegapunk could speak, Hancock had already said impatiently, "Maid, pay attention to your own identity. For this kind of thing, dear, you can decide it yourself. And with my protection, dear, you won't encounter any danger. What you have to do is to serve dear and me well." Terumi Meri rolled her eyes secretly in her heart, but her face was cautious, not daring to show the slightest dissatisfaction. The original Terumi Meri was actually a very proud guy, until she was beaten up by Hancock several times. She settled down. In other words, except for Nico Robin, Hancock has been suppressing both Ikang and Terumi. Otherwise, Terumi, who has become the successor to the Mizukage, would not be so obedient. After all, even the real Kazukage was suppressed and kept obedient, not to mention her, the successor to the Mizukage. Hirozen, I received information that Vegapunk is coming to visit the Konohagakure. This is a good opportunity. The speaker was an old man with a bandage on his face, who looked full of gloom. After hearing his words, the third Hokage, who was processing documents at his desk, raised his head with a headache on his face. Danzo, what are you trying to do? That Dr. Vegapunk is the heir to the daimyo of the sea country, and has a very high status in the wind country and the water country. Do you still want to attack him? This is not an ordinary matter. If it is not handled properly, let alone the Sand Village and the Sea Village, the entire Wind Country and Sea Country Alliance and even other countries, including the noble daimyo of the Fire Country, will not let it go. After all, both the daimyo and those nobles are wary of the power of the ninja. Once they cross the line, they will face a joint counterattack from all the daimyo and nobles. There is a certain boundary between the ninjas who possess extraordinary powers and the secular world. Perhaps, with the development of the times, the ninjas will eventually be able to break away from the daimyo and the nobles, and become the real leaders of the world. But before that, if the first ninja village that dares to take the lead does not have peerless strongmen like Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara to support it, it will definitely be crushed by the backlash of the times, even if it is the strongest Konoha ninja village. But Hirozen, you should understand. Even if we do nothing, with the current development momentum of the Sand Village and the Sea Village, their strength will truly surpass ours in a while. And they will surpass the Konoha village in all aspects, both economically and in strength. And the root of all problems lies in that Vegapunk. His inventions that are beyond the times have a huge impact on the ninja village and the country. This month, the funds allocated to our Konoha village by the daimyo have been reduced again. The proportion of tax revenue and military expenditure has increased, but the actual funds received have been continuously reduced. The tax revenue of the entire Fire Country has begun to decline sharply, and the income of the Sea Country and the Wind Country is constantly growing, and they are even willing to invest a lot of money to develop ninja villages. I don't think this will be a sign of peace. The ninja village is originally a military organization unique to the country in this era. Although the strength of the ninjas makes this military organization seem a little distorted, and even has the attributes of half mercenary and half national, which makes people feel a little incredible, it must be said that the ultimate military strength of the entire country still depends on the ninja villages of each country. When a country invests most of its tax revenue in the military field, it is self-evident what they want to do. So I have reached a certain consensus with the Land of Earth and the Land of Lightning, and the Rock and Cloud villages have agreed to advance and retreat together with us. Sarutobi Hirozen frowned and said, the alliance of the three major countries and three major ninja villages should be able to effectively stop the ambitions of the sea and sand ninjas. What a joke. The cloud and rock ninjas themselves are not trustworthy. Danzo looked excited, and his saliva almost sprayed on Sarutobi Hirozen's face. If those two ninja villages knew what sincere cooperation was, Konoha would have been flattened long ago. This is true. In all the previous ninja world wars, the main opponents of Konoha village were the rock and cloud ninjas. The sand ninjas were always the first to start a war and the fastest to seek peace. The mist ninjas were just a foil, and the direction of each battle is similar. At the beginning, the Rock Ninja and the Cloud Ninja fought with Konoha at the same time. When Konoha gradually couldn't hold on, the two sides stabbed each other in the back to fight for the victory and pulled each other's legs and then were pushed down by Konoha. After several such situations, people can see the true faces of these two ninja villages. Sarutobi Hiruzen is not a fool, and he can naturally see how unreliable his two allies are. That's better than you attacking Vegapunk directly. Sarutobi Hiruzen said without hesitation. Perhaps doing this can suppress the momentum of the development of the Sand Village and the Sea Village, but it will undoubtedly concentrate all the pressure on Konoha. By then, Konoha will definitely be the enemy of the world, and the two allies will really turn against them. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.